I'm interested to see if there's a Wi-Fi thing over here, or if it's perfect. You know, sometimes we have those weird audio issues.
We had that today.
Apple Council? Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, yeah, we've
Well, this is good, then we
been having bandwidth issues.
Yeah, is that what it is?
Yeah,
Probably it's because of people working from home and stuff.
Well, he
Oh, no, it's not.
connected to buildings last week
Uh-huh.
over Thanksgiving, so I think that it's. So I upped it today.
Thank you.
so we should be good, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:01. This is a hybrid meeting, which means we're also on Zoom, live on YouTube, I hope, and then the Board of Selectmen are in person as well as other people that are in person. I'm Ken Pacheco, I'm the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. We have Selectman Larry Powell and Selectman Brett Sabrafis here also. Our next meeting will be December 8th at 6 p.m. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have a moment of silence since our last meeting? The following residents of Dayton have passed. Alfred Costa Jr., 75 of Dayton. He was an Army veteran and proprietor of Costa Insurance. Gloria Johnson, 95 of North Dayton. She was a retired nurse and former member of the Dayton Council on Aging. She was also the wife of the late Dr. Walter Johnson. Aiden Stafford, 66 of North Dayton. He was the owner and operator of ETM Fire Protection. And also Bill Chiloskas, 62 of Dayton. Our thoughts and condolences go out to their families at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So our first scheduled appointment is Theodore Conte. He's going to present to us his Stephen Scott project. Can you explain to us what you're going to be doing?
So I'm going to be creating accessible garden boxes for at the Dayton Community Garden. They're going to be made out of rough cut pine wood, untreated wood, and they follow the ADA requirements and dimensions that the ADA requires.
Yeah, we've had an opportunity, I think, to look at your project, the size of the beds and everything else. There is an all-natural wood reserve that I would suggest that we put on the wood that we put on the other boxes that we assembled over there. It's supposed to be good for those that grow organically, which I believe is what they're going to be doing over there. So I would suggest, and we have some of that powder, I believe, Tanya, we have some of that powder available. It's going to be mixed with water, and whenever you're ready to do that project and set it up, we would ask that you use that. I assume Mr. Ferry's been involved in this.
Yes.
He's aware of it. You want to speak on this?
I did have an opportunity to meet with him, it was last weekend, right?
Yeah.
And by yes. The woods in my salt shed right now, where to go, you need to meet with the council before you actually bang some nails, right? You meet with the council soon, you get a date on that?
Yeah. I understand as the Commissioner of Disability, you're going to be meeting with tomorrow night?
Yes.
Yes.
And the Boy Scout Council?
Yes, I'm going to be hopefully sending my proposal out this weekend.
Who's that?
What?
The event? Okay, so you should be getting started soon, good,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I understand at the time you've also been made aware of this. Yep.
Absolutely.
You're very
He
active in
presented
this
his
project.
proposal to the committee and the group, his leaders, and he's done a fantastic job with this proposal. He's made it very well, thought it out very thoroughly, right down to every inch and measurement. So we're super excited. So, yeah.
Thank you. And we have our ADA coordinator here, so I assume you ran this by him to make sure that you have the dimensions and all that kind of stuff. Is that true, Mr. Gale?
Mr. Chairman, we have discussed this several times. The protocols each time, but just for general information purposes, that because this is an Eagle Scout project, each conversation that I have with Theo also involves a third party, for the most part his mom, so that everyone is on the same page. He has diligently paid attention to what I have told him the specs need to be ADA compliant in terms of the design, the overall shape, thinking about location, all that sort of stuff for accessible, foot traffic or wheelchair traffic as well. So again, he will be presenting it formally to us tomorrow evening as the Commissioner on Disability. But for myself as the coordinator, he has worked as closely as we could ask for to put this together.
Thank you, Mr. Gale. Does the board have any questions?
No, I just have a comment.
Just,
Just kind of, congratulations and best wishes. As a former member of 245, Life Scout, you have my total support. Personally, if anything I can do for you, contributions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Anything I can do as a member of the Board of Selectmen, obviously, and my support. I would wish you the best, but I'd also like to point out, and this has happened, several other Eagle Scout project requests that have come before the Board of Selectmen. There has been a man behind the scenes who had mentioned every single one of them, and the great work that Mr. Tom Ferry does in making it happen. Because not only is it successful for the town, but I'm sure I don't know how many there have been, he's contributed greatly to Eagle Scout Awards to many, many Dayton residents. Mr. Ferry, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ferry?
Yes, thank you for the acknowledgement of that. It's all about the kids. Just one other small point of order. Our protocol requires them to give you a mid-project report. He should be able to complete it in a timely fashion where he's just going to report when it's finished.
What is the time, what's the schedule for this? When will you begin the project and when do you think it'll be completed?
So I plan to begin the project either end of December, hopefully end of December, and then if not, then early January. And then I'll finish my project in total before the end of February. So I'm planning to finish the boxes like before February, but project total will be February.
Just for my information, is he going to be responsible for filling these beds, the compost and all that good stuff?
Since we have lost our manure donation that we were counting on, which ended up being a blessing in disguise, not knowing where the ramp was going to go for the shed, and we would have filled them already. It ended up working out, but I have told Teddy to hold off on that because I'm hoping that we can work together to get them filled, or we can get them filled for him. But the dirt issue is still yet to be figured out.
And you've got time to work on that.
We do.
Because I know that we want this project to begin in the springtime, but we've got time. Once the bed, 88 beds are made, then it's just a matter of filling them up in the springtime.
Yes, and as far as completion for his project, filling them won't be a requirement that we need to be done to be considered a complete.
Any other questions or any other concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve this legal project.
I have a question. So what about, just going back to the beginning, what about the project interested you? Had you heard about the garden or the need for the accessibility, the accessible beds?
Yes, so I was Boy Scouts was involved in this garden, so I heard about the garden from Boy Scouts, and I was looking for an Eagle Scout project at that time, and the scout leader brought this project to my attention, and I decided to do it because I felt that it was interesting and good for the community.
Awesome. And so I'm really proud that you are taking this on, and I'm excited about it. And my last question, I promise, is what about, let me rephrase it. Actually, I'm not even gonna ask it. I'm just gonna thank you for taking it on. And actually, I'll ask Mrs. Patricio if it's okay. My question, I think, is more in line with his aim to be done at the end of February. Is that in line with the work that everyone did previously to get the original beds ready and for the spring?
No, so his particular timeline is specific to his birthday coming up and turning 18. So his Eagle project needs to be completed by that time. It needs to be submitted to council. And totally done by that time. So it actually worked out really perfectly because over the winter, we're not using it. We don't need it right now. So he does have the time to work on it and it will be ready for spring planting. So everything just seems to be falling into place. Yeah. But that is based on his own personal timeline.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you need any volunteers to help with it, or is this something you have to do specifically yourself?
Well, I am asking the Boy Scouts in my troop to help me. I need volunteers for a requirement.
I ran out of time, that's why I didn't get what you got, so I know the stress and what you're going through. Please reach out to us, there are many people we can get to assist you to. I don't know the rules about assistance, how much you have to do yourself and how much people can help you with, but please.
Thank you.
I know, Jen, you just walked in. Anything else you want to, we've gone through the whole project with him. He's explained everything to us, what he's going to do. Everything you want to add or put you on the spot?
Yeah, you did, but I don't have anything to add, so proceed.
Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to get the wording correct, sorry. Mr. Chairman, I motion to authorize the chairman to sign, I believe it's the form to get the project going. What form is it? Don't you sign something? Or is that at the end?
I don't think I'll have it signed.
So he's got his proposal to give to you.
Yes, I do have a proposal.
But is there something to sign? Okay, all right.
So once we approve it, we need to sign it.
Sorry.
You're signing for council, so the council knows that the town has approved it.
Is the motion completed?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yes,
Any questions or discussion?
No.
Roll call vote. Selectman Hill?
Aye.
Selectman Serapis?
Aye.
And Campuchico is an aye.
That's awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's just so the wording on this, it's not really, and you can correct me, Jenna, Tony, it's not a community garden. This is a garden, from what I understand, it's for the food bank, and it's also for Lincoln Village, for those, the residents of Lincoln Village. So it's not the typical community garden where anybody can come in and kind of what they want.
You buy a plot.
Yeah, you plant, you guys plant the tomatoes and somebody can just go in and get the tomatoes. So that's not the way it's run. Well, and that's what community gardens are, so.
So what
I'll
should we change it
It
to?
is the James Briggs Historical Garden.
Okay. Make that change.
Do you have somebody for me to sign in? Yeah.
So I have the paper right here, and then, this is for like beneficiaries to look over.
So you want to show them where to sign?
Who did?
You show them what's about to sign?
Yeah,
I think it's right over here.
I think that's where the council is. It's gonna be right there. Or down below.
Then after you sign, we tell you what you just signed.
What you really signed.
I did have one question, the project beneficiary, what would the town email be for the project beneficiary?
Mr. Administrator, I think you,
We keep that, sir.
did you answer
Yeah.
that in an email?
Thank you. Thank you.
So the project beneficiary would be the town of, Dayton, like if you want to include my email on behalf of the town, I can do that.
Thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we look forward to this project being completed.
Yep, I'll be back at the end.
No worries.
No pressure.
When is your 18th birthday?
When's your 18th birthday?
March 19th.
Okay, you have some time.
I'm just curious, if you have a couple of big blizzards and you can't do this outdoors, do you get a birthday extension for blizzards?
No.
Wow.
That's
They'll be
why,
out there moving.
that's why I said,
Yeah,
you know, that happens, let us know.
just gotta do it.
He should be able to do it, I would think. It's gonna be some quiet times in the winter. He should be able to get it done. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
For presenting us with this, and we look forward to seeing the project completed.
Thank you.
The next scheduled appointment is Tom Ferry, Highway Superintendent, regarding donated trees.
Good evening. From time to time, we have some developments in our town, working on projects, and while their project evolve, residents come in and establish their homes and yards and landscaping, but the plans require them to plant a certain number of trees. In particular, we're talking about Maris Lane. There was 2 residents that refused to have these trees planted in front of their properties, which happens. Sometimes we have to eliminate trees because of utilities and driveways. So because of that, we have roughly 5 to 6 trees that may become available. Usually we try to still fit them in their project somewhere. They're running out of room. I'm going to give them a couple more days to try to get some more. But it looks like we're going to have around 5 trees or 6 trees. I already did say the old town hall property, and end of Bailey Street, that's Round Island, pending your decision, possibly placing these trees as needed, because we need to get them in the ground very soon.
Right.
So we don't lose the trees. The trees are mostly red oaks, similar to the ones we have in our the War Memorial up front, those majestic red trees. And one would be the hybrid ash, like over here by the fire pit behind the pavilion there, with that camouflage looking bark.
Yeah.
Those are beautiful trees also. Just point of order though, I don't want to just plant trees because I'm not the steward of the town properties. I believe the board of selectmen are. That's why I am taking your time up tonight. Did you want to look into this a little bit more involved? Do you have a problem with those type of trees going where I can fit them? How would you like to proceed with this?
I assume the oak trees, they're the ones that are gonna grow 60 feet, if not more.
Correct.
And probably this time of year, they still have the leaves on, like the ones in front of my house.
In the future, they will. Right now, they have no leaves on them. They're in dormant now. It's a good time to get them in the ground. So this area here, we lost a few trees probably 12 years ago. So we have room for 2 or 3 here. The north side of the town hall, as you know, we lost one earlier this year. That big maple, we lost that one. The end of Bailey Street, that one's been going for quite a while. That's probably close to 20 years. It's been missing tree on that island. And so that's my idea. And I was entertaining with maybe that grass strip in front of the old town hall. But these type of trees will probably be too big for that area.
My personal feeling is that we should let the tree warden, you have to get a tree warden to decide where they should go. He's familiar with the trees, how big they're gonna grow, that kind of stuff. It's important that you notice how big they're gonna grow, even though we may not be around when they're fully grown. Somebody will be, and we don't want any problem.
I was just going to ask the chair if I could make a motion.
Sure.
That we authorize Attorney Tom Ferry to plant, you said 5 trees?
5 or 6 trees, yes.
Okay. In locations that he feels are best suited. on town property.
We need to accept the trees first, then accept the donation of the trees as a motion. Motion.
Are they already on top?
That's a good question, and I was asked because of the agenda, I didn't know how to answer that, because they're not really donated, they're like in lieu of. They need to be planted as part of the project. But yeah, they're gonna be coming on town property, yes.
Maybe we could just, in the motion, just say accept and, to allow the town to accept the trees, and then for this highway superintendent to place them at a place of his choosing.
It's been amended, you second that?
Yep,
Any,
I do.
any questions or any discussion?
Well, actually, I
Ms.
just,
Leffenhall?
I attended that meeting where there was a discussion. Is this a donation, or does those trees have to get planted?
So he already received them from the nursery. If the burlap's not open, he can return some stock back, which
Okay,
he
so
is.
it is a donation, and I'm gonna go somewhere with this as a follow-up.
He already adjusted the plans, he had planted quite a bit on the back side towards that retention pond on that access road. We might be able to get one or two more, so without jamming.
But he could take them back and get reimbursed.
No, not the ones that the burlaps are already open in those front yards that the residents refuse. Those we have to use up, like he has to use up,
Okay,
yes.
okay, no, thank you.
But I think because they're coming on here and the road is not accepted yet, technically you are, it's a donation, yes.
It is?
I think semantics it is.
So the motion's been amended for the donation. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Segravas? And Campuchico is also an aye. Selectman Hull?
Since it has been defined as a definite donation, I'd like to make a motion that a letter of thanks by the town be sent to the developer. We are trying to develop goodwill with businesses in this community. A letter of donation would certainly be something he could use if he was looking for a tax deduction.
Making that motion?
Yes.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z?
Aye.
And Campuchico is an aye. It passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next scheduled appointment is Health Agent Todd Billings, giving us a COVID-19 update.
Good evening, John.
Good evening.
So for starters, I want to give recognition for a job well done to all the Dayton school nurses. Schools are utilizing a test and stay program, which allows children in quarantine to stay in school after they show up at the nurse's office every morning and get tested. The nurses are going way above the call of duty to execute this program to keep the kids in school. They're also doing the contact tracing, so if a kid in school is positive, they're the ones identifying everybody around them, so they're doing some of the work for us. In the report I prepared for the Board of Selectmen on Mondays, we had 50 cases over the past 2 weeks. Since that report, we've had 20 new cases come into the state system. There are another dozen cases identified in the test and stay program, but those don't get entered into the state program. Nor do any of the home tests, which I can't even begin to guess at how many of those are in there too. Our new public health nurse, Nicole Mello, has taken over the contact tracing. Roz and I are continuing to follow the cases that we did the intake reports on, because obviously we've developed a rapport with those people. So of these 90 cases, approximately 50% of them are vaccinated and 50% are not. Over the last week, we've had 1 COVID-related death and 3 cases have been admitted to the hospital. Of these 70 cases, those aged 40 to 60 are the highest number, and 0 to 19 is the second highest number. I'm giving this information because I know this has been questions that people have asked continuously. The increasing caseload is approximately the same trend as last year. If you look at like a graph of it, if the pattern is consistent with last year, the number of cases will continue to rise through January 15th. This means that people have to be diligent over the holidays and very aware of themselves. Symptoms may seem like it is just a cold or allergies or it's the flu. It may actually be COVID. As indicated on the message boards, which Highway Department is nice enough to drag her all around town for us, Thank you, Tom. Social distancing is important, especially if you develop any symptoms. There are numerous places to get tested, and all you gotta do is call and ask. Contact tracing is an effective way for us to pull the weeds before they spread. Please answer or return the phone call when our nurse calls or I call. Because you're contagious for 48 hours prior to these symptoms starting. So that's why this keeps spreading. Is once people are sick, they do step away, but it was the 48 hours prior. So social distancing is very important. Our office and the nurse are available for questions and information at pretty much any time. So, thank you. Does the board have, or the public have any questions for me last
I
time?
just said, so we've had 9 deaths then in town, because we had 8 before, so we had 1. Thank you.
It was last week, but we didn't get it till today because the CTC was following the case.
Thank you. Selectmen Health, yeah.
You mentioned that we're running, the trend is following last year. Last year, we had many additional things in place as far as restrictions. Have you received any guidance or direction from DPH about implementing or recommending that we implement any of the protocols that we had last year that we don't have this year?
No, in fact, they are specifically saying basically stay the course.
I mean, that's real important, so the public understands.
And just, last year our first death was in November, and our first death this year was in November, so.
Last year, we had individuals who helped people be tested. I mean, I know you took a list of volunteers to help. Has that program been discontinued?
Well, if you mean driving them to get their tests?
Right.
No, it hasn't been discontinued. If somebody calls us, we reach out to the different people to get them there. Honestly, with the home test kits available, it hasn't really been much of a problem, so.
Is Mr. Gales been involved in that in regards to reaching out to the?
Well, he would be one of them, but again, nobody's asked us for any assistance. Again, like I say, the home kits make it so much easier, so you can just bring the kit to the person, you don't have to get them to a testing center.
Do you have funds available to purchase these home kits should some people in a situation where they're homebound and they really can't afford it and can't get help?
I would assume we do have some funds, off the top of my head, I would assume we do in our probably professional and technical line or something like that.
So yeah, and if we wanted to do that as a town as well, we could dedicate that. So like ARPA funding would be used for that as well as a qualifying expense.
See, one of the things in my discussions, I guess he left, with Mr. Gales is that he knows and has identified some people in the town that because of age and physical disability, that they're shut-ins and homebound. And I don't know if he shared those names and information with you.
But we're the ones keeping the list, so he's supposed to be getting those names to us. Because we did the list last year when all this was happening. And because we have Council on Aging, the Selectmen's office, Mr. Gale, send everything to us, so we have the master list. Because for HIPAA reasons, we should be the ones keeping that as opposed to just any citizen of the town.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
could you facilitate that? Or have that discussion with Jonathan so that it's coordinated?
What discussion?
Well, he has identified certain individuals in the town who, because of their disability and their age, are basically shut-in. Some of those people don't have family. It's important that Mr. Pilling have that data so he can reach out and help those people. Or work with Jonathan to reach out to those people. Some of them have developed a relationship with John, and they may feel a little, not the person, but you're a stranger, but he's developed a relationship.
I get just like the veterans agent with the veterans and the Council on Aging with their clientele, I get it, I do, so.
So, my question is, Is the rise in cases impacting the pandemic task force? I have not heard any of their recommendations.
Well, again, based on what the DPH and everybody has been, what we've been told, we at this point in time do not have any recommendations to change any of the procedures. The only thing we are looking at is updating the protocols for coming back to work if you've tested positive here in the town buildings.
My other concern is you had mentioned using ARPA funds, and as you know, we had CARES funds that weren't used, and I feel like that should come out of CARES, not ARPA. So if there's a way that you could contact someone and see, because the ARPA funds, you're having meetings to figure out what that's gonna be used for. I don't think that COVID-19 test, when we have a pot of money sitting in an account somewhere, should be used from the ARPA funds when we have water and sewer needs. It should be used from the pot of funds that we've had sitting in an account for the last year.
So in terms of our CARES Act funding, we had until the end of October. So on our CARES Act funding, and we just actually had town accountant earlier this week, based on the reconciliation process, she went through with the executive office of A&F at the end of October, just actually got just actually had all of our approved funding returned to us, so we don't actually have the ability to bill any more CARES Act.
Dr. Z, I've had a conversation with someone, one Senator Pacheco's aides on this subject. At Lights On, I made a plea to Senator Pacheco, and the answer has been consistent. The deadline is reached, those funds are returned to the state. I think what we need to do, and a serious need to do, especially with the new variant and the numbers in supporting this, is a rise, that we reach out. She's been a very strong supporter, Representative Haddad, and see if Pat can help convince the state to reconsider and reallocate some of those funds. You have another question, it's for Mr. Hay.
Yes.
Do you also have a list of shut-in vets or vets at risk that Mr. Pilling isn't aware of that could
I
use?
wouldn't have a list of shut-in veterans. I have a list of Chapter 115 veterans who seem to be all older. I do know of a couple of it, I believe it's Lincoln Woods. Is that the name of the?
Lincoln Village.
Lincoln Village.
Yeah.
But it's a small amount. However, the state has allocated reimbursement money to us for those individuals on Chapter 115, any testing or anything they need to do with COVID. Beyond that, other veterans in town, I don't know if my budget would support any further from that.
Could you work closely with Mr. Pilling on that? I know you're not on that task force, correct?
No, but I do work close to them, very close to the office.
Right, okay, no,
Yeah, so what a couple of you may not be aware is back when all this started with the vaccines, Mr. Hershey was the veterans agent, and we reached out to him. And he went so far as to personally call every one of the 77 disabled veterans on the rolls and went to the houses, they didn't answer the phone over a weekend and got the answers out of all 77, and there were like 8 put on our list.
see, that's the kind of stuff.
And we can take any veteran in town to an appointment.
So these tests aren't that expensive. Have you been asked for any? Anybody's asked for the tests?
So that's my only thing, is if we don't wanna invent a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. So if nobody's asking for one, they are expensive, by the way, I have purchased them, they're not cheap. I was able to use my health savings account and save some money. They're like $50 or $35 for a pack of two. I mean, they're
It's
pretty
like
expensive.
$23 for a package, and I think,
That's
I think
expensive.
I think Walmart's like $15 for a package too.
I'm not sure there, but I spent $25 at CVS, I think it was, and I got 2 packs for $50, so 4 packs.
For a little while there was a little shortage in trying to get them, but now that supply seems to be back.
So maybe we could just connect with Jonathan and see, because I think he might have the biggest list of shut-ins. So maybe we could just ask him if anyone's expressed a need for tests or anything like that, like people that aren't able to get to a test site.
No, if anybody asks us, we would not turn them away, we would find a way to get them the help that they need. So.
And I think, to your point, Selectman Hull, originally, and maybe I'm wrong, they started the ride share thing, the Commission on Disability, when the vaccines came out. But since, more and more people get vaccinated, maybe we could ask them if there are people, so to save the town money, instead of buying a bunch of tests, we could just ask them if, instead of bringing people to vaccine sites like Gillette, I think they were doing that, we could ask them to bring them to test sites, and there are test sites like right down the road at CVS, and that might save money. So just a thought.
Any other questions for the health agent? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Appreciate it.
Next agenda item is public input. Anybody on Zoom? Mr. Higgins, you want to speak on public input?
Yes, sir. How are you, sir? Mr. Chairman, Dr. Z, Mr. Holt, glad to see you. Today is Rosa Parks' anniversary. 66 years ago today, she refused to give up her seat on the bus down here in Alabama, and today is Rosa Parks Day in Alabama, where it was 70 degrees today. I would like to thank your town administrator and your administrative assistant, Karen, for the excellent job they do on the minutes. And we worked together cooperatively yesterday and resolved the open meeting law complaint. It has been dismissed by the Division of Open Government. It has been satisfied. And I am sure that, I know you guys are doing the best you can. I was not happy when Dr. Z called it frivolous. If he felt it was frivolous, he could have called, but that's okay. But you guys are doing a great job. Like I said, it was 70 degrees here today. I may appear at your meeting next week because I will be in town next week. So I may just stop by and maybe bring some donuts. But like I said, don't forget Rosa Parks. It was 66 years today that she started the civil rights movement. So have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next week, Patrick, we'll be at the Old Town Hall.
I know, I saw that. Thank you.
Any other public input?
Okay, I just, first of all, Tom Berkman, I'm over on Huntersville Drive. I'd just like to thank the Board of Selectmen's office, the town clerk, a few other people that reached out. My wife recently had emergency surgery and she's doing well, and just happened real quick, and everyone came together. I had people from all over town. We were able to pull off the CPC meeting. It was finally, we got a quorum, so we were blessed for that. We got a lot done. So that's finally moving forward. And we also were lucky to have this prime time location now for our meetings, and we're gonna try to stay with that. But it was very touching. I actually got an email from Leanne checking up on us, and I thought that was nice because the town clerk had mentioned, I missed I like the department head meetings, but I was so tied up. I've got a nurse coming in, PT. I have to, I'm doing what I can, but she's like the glue that holds, as you all know in family, I'm big on family. And, but to have we've gone through some things over the years. I've only been with the town since volunteering since 2016. But it's rewarding for me. But when they talk about the big heart and the heart is, the people do care in this town. A lot of people don't realize that, you know, once you get to know folks, they do care. So it really was touching. And my wife she just thought that was so nice, you know, that you guys reached out to actually check in on us to see if we're all right, because I missed a meeting. Because I'm trying to get back on the, you know, on the program. So basically, that meant a lot. I just wanted to thank everybody. And things are moving forward. Basically, I think you know we're moving forward. We had a few technical glitches we tried to overcome. It all smoothed out. It was kind of we got it down. The one thing I will mention, somebody had put a sticky note over the camera lens, and we had Dave Marvell, who's an expert in the cable. We didn't even notice it, but we couldn't figure out why we couldn't get going. So we're sitting here, and Kevin happened to look from the Park and Rec, right? And somebody put a sticky note over that lens. So I don't know if they thought maybe they were, I don't know why, but we pulled that off, and then everything worked. And then, you know, it was just one of those, I got an expert with us and we didn't see that. But then he noticed that, and that's probably, if you watch the tape, it started out, it looked like something from a movie from, I forget, you know, like a comedy. Animal House. Yeah, I actually had a guy on a speakerphone who was in COVID protocol. So he's on my speakerphone. I got two other guys that couldn't get on. They finally get on. My secretary couldn't get on. So then we finally pulled together and everybody got through it and everybody was happy so that's all good. That's where I'm at. That's all I got.
Thank you, Tom.
Hi.
In light of the the video drawings.
Yep.
I think T.A. Mullen has a wonderful announcement in regards to IT grant money
So yeah,
award.
we have had IT troubles. I actually have not heard of the post-it note issue until tonight. But unfortunately, $17,000 grant that we've been awarded by the state won't actually address the post-it note issue, but it will address firewalls, like in network security. So it actually helps us upgrade our speed. So hopefully in the future things will be better, and things will be more efficient in speed. Like in terms of everything we do in the network. So.
Well, thank you for applying for that grant, and also Chris Rayner for his work involved in that.
No, thank you.
You want to speak?
I was gonna bring up something
Can you just identify yourself, give us your name and address?
Well, I'm not gonna address the issue tonight.
So on public input, Mrs. Gould, I don't know if you just walked in, so just.
Hey,
so
these
you
are
know.
nice digs, I gotta tell you that.
Warm in here.
No further input, public input, we'll go.
Well, just one thing.
Yeah, name and address, please.
Yeah, Tom Galucci, 2086 Monmouth Street. I just wanted to thank you and everybody else, all you guys, for the Veterans Breakfast a few weeks ago. That was really nice, and you know, it was nice to network with some of these guys and see everybody on an otherwise cold day. So it was great. So I just wanted to thank you all for having that. That's all I got.
Mr. Our Veterans Agent, Mr. Hay, put it all together.
Fantastic. Nice work.
The Lions Club provided the monies for the breakfast.
Alice's
Yeah,
as well.
Alice's, so,
Yep. So
that was nice for them to donate that money. So,
In a follow-up to that, something we discussed at the department head meeting today. Mr. Hague, and especially Mrs. Goulart, thank you for putting together that wonderful November 11th Veterans Service
that we had this year.
Thanks. Very nice.
So if there's no further input, I'll go to the proclamation. We have a proclamation for National Pearl Harbor Day. Whereas Congress has designated December 7th as National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, and whereas December 7th, 2021 marks the 80th anniversary of the attack on the United States Naval Base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, where more than 2,400 people perished and more than 1,100 were wounded. And whereas the surprise attack by the military forces of Imperial Japan, which was described by Franklin D. Roosevelt as a day which will live in infamy, led to the escalation of the World War II, and whereas we wish to honor the brave men and women who served in the war and to reflect on the sacrifice of so many others who have shared their devotion to duty and freedom. Whereas it is appropriate that all citizens remember the bravery of those who serve their country, so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Dayton, recognize Tuesday, December 7th, 2021 as National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, and urge all the citizens of the Town of Dayton to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. And signed by the Board of Selectmen, Camber Chico, Chairman, Clerk, and Dr. Professor Office member. I believe, before we take a vote on acceptance proclamation, I believe our resident agent wishes to speak on Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Selectmen. I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve. That's what Japanese Admiral Yamamoto wrote in his diary after the planes returned from the surprise attack. He did it because it wasn't a total annihilation of the Pacific Fleet, a fleet that was quickly restored and in short 6 months dropped bombs on Tokyo and shook the emperor to his core. This is the 80th anniversary of the attack, which would be next Tuesday, and less than 2,000 service people remain of the 60,000 that survived that attack. So what's happening is we are losing quickly our ability to get a first-hand look at history and how another nation can attack a peaceful nation and try to eliminate it. So over the next few years, what we need to do is focus and keep forever the archives and have remembrances like this and proclamations like this in every city and town in the United States. So with that, I thank you for your dedication and your remembrance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I'll entertain a motion to accept this proclamation.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day proclamation as prepared.
So a second, any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Camber Chico is also an aye. Thank you. Could Dr. Z, could you read the announcements, please?
Sure. The Dayton Lions Club Food Bank distribution will be held next at 8 a.m. on Saturday, December 18th, 2021 at Town Hall, lower level, 979 Somerset Avenue. Give me 1 second and I'll read the list of board vacancies. So the first one is the Board of Health has 1 member needed. Cable Television Committee has 1 vacancy. Capital Outlay Committee has 1 vacancy. I think that's the Finance Committee.
Yes.
Position. Cemetery Commission has 1 vacancy. Commission on Disability has 3. Conservation Commission has 1. Who's that? Who resigned from the Conservation Commission?
I think they're looking for.
There's an associate member
available. Open.
So we filled there.
We filled 1, I think they have 2 associates.
There were never 2. Okay, well, so they have they have a non-voting associate member position. We filled it with Mr. LePage, that's why I asked. Okay, so apparently they have another one. Finance Committee has 2 members. And that's not really a big commitment. They mostly just meet before town meetings and during the budget season. So it's an important role, but it's not even a committee that meets every month, for example. Human Rights Committee has 4, Land Use Committee has 2, Open Space Committee has 3. We need a Superintendent of Pest Control. The TIF Review Board has 2, and the Zoning Board of Appeals has 1.
I just wanna, you've already mentioned, but the food bank, the Lions Club has a food bank once a month. The next one is December 18th at 8 o'clock. I would encourage anybody who needs food to come and sign up for it. They really don't question too much. We have a lot of food in the food bank, and rather have it go bad, it's important that we are able to distribute as much food as possible. So if you feel that there's a need that you can't afford to get your own food, I would encourage you to come to the food bank. It's definitely, it's a great asset that the town has. Town administrators reports.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, did you announce the flu clinic?
No, I did not. That was a recent addition. The flu clinic is going to be
December 18th at Old Town Hall. So the town of Dayton, we're in the process of confirming. So the town of Dayton is in the process of confirming a flu clinic. It's going to be held on Saturday, December 18th, from 10 to 12 at Old Town Hall, and more information will be forthcoming on that.
So our next meeting is December 8th, and we will have more information on that. Yep. We'll let the public know. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Mr. Goulart. Town administrators report.
So thank you, Chairman. So like I have a few announcements though. I have a few announcements relative to grants. I'm very happy to announce that we in the town of Dayton have been awarded a $25,000 grant to create an economic development plan. And that is an award from the State Executive Office of Administration and Finance through the Community Compact program. So back in September, you will remember. That we identified a community cabinet priorities. One being creating an economic development plan, and the second actually for financial planning as well. And I just have to let someone into the Zoom. And so the $25,000 grant that we've been awarded by the state, actually dovetails with the work that is ongoing in so that has been ongoing with the development industrial commission. And also the $25,000 grant will be matched, actually with $40,000 in district local technical assistance funding from SEPED as well. So we have all the grant, all the grant information and the grant agreement. Actually in the packet, I recommend approval of that.
Does the board have any questions?
I have a comment. And I don't mean to be like that person or a stickler or anything, but so let me back up with a compliment. This is much needed and I'm really excited about it and I look forward to seeing what comes from it. My only issue is that when we first applied for this in 2017, and I've said this before, so I feel a little bit like a broken record, but the Board of Selectmen, each selectman, and you were not on the board at that time, but each selectman was responsible for making a narrative. My only issue is that this was submitted, and then, to my knowledge, no selectman that I know of had any input on it. So I don't think that should happen again. I think that it should come to the Board of Selectmen for input, because we should have a right to, and I'm not just talking to you, town administrator, but I feel very strongly, and I'm sure former Selectman Goulart was in the audience, would feel the same way, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, certainly, Assessor Goulart, but that should have come back to us for input. Because I did want to read it, at the very least, read it before it was submitted. I didn't even get to read it before it was submitted. So I hope that that doesn't happen again. That's all I'm saying.
I don't remember that happening too often, though. I know I was involved in the KMA 88 grant, I don't remember having to write a narrative or read a narrative regarding any of the different grants that we've
So that wasn't a grant initiated by the Board of Selectmen. This is a program that we initiated, and the idea came from the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen are the ones who brought it to fruition. So my only issue, and I don't have a problem that it was written by somebody else, and I'm sure it was run by Serpent, and there was more than enough technical expertise and input by individuals that know certainly a lot more than me. But what I'm saying is I would like to have had the opportunity to review it and have input if I wanted to before it was sent in. But that being said, it's done, it looks really good. I think something really good is gonna come from it, and I commend the town administrator and the Development and Industrial Commission for getting the grant. Just let me know.
I want to take a little bit of ownership of that. Personally, it's a little unfair, that criticism. TA, we did work on that. I apologize for not referring that information back to my colleagues. There were some discussions that I know take place with the chairman. I assumed that this was one of them, but in the future, I will do a better job reporting back to the members of the board. Issues such as that come before the Industrial Development Commission.
May I say one last thing?
One last thing.
It's just,
They didn't give me a gavel.
Oh,
You can just
left over this stuff for the planning
you
board.
just tap me on the shoulder and tell me to be quiet. I certainly wasn't saying it to the town administrator, I'm just facing this table, so it looks like I'm talking to the town administrator. And I certainly wasn't saying it to you, Selectman Hull. I just think we need to have an understanding as a board, right? It's not even just me. I think we need to have an understanding as a board that, like, if it's a grant that the Board of Selectmen has originated or a program that we have entered into and it came from the Board of Selectmen, that we should at least get a chance to like read it before it gets sent in. That's all I was saying.
In regards to that, some of these are deadline sensitive. So in those instances, we agree if that be the case, and I'm okay with that, that we have due diligence to support Mr. Mullen in getting over to the office to read it.
And in a case like that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Administrator.
I did say one more thing.
Okay, you got it. I just wanted to add, in response to what Selectman Hull is saying, if we can't have a meeting in time for a deadline, which is a real concern, we meet only twice a month and not even bi-weekly, then maybe you could, so no open meeting law is violated, you could send the narrative or whatever to the 3 selectmen and they could each respond to you with whatever they think about it. And not to anyone else, just.
That's unfair, like in feedback. Like as like an FYI if you have any, as an FYI if you have any feedback, let me know type of thing.
But I don't want to end on a bad note. This is really, really needed, and I really am really proud that we are continuing the community compact cabinet best practices. And like I said, I just really look forward to seeing the final product. I think it's going to be really good for the town.
Well, I have confidence in town administrator Mullen in applying for these grants and whoever member of the board that participates in it. I don't feel that I need to be made aware, but I appreciate your involvement in this and I give you credit for being involved with this particular grant. So
it's a good group.
I will entertain a motion to accept the $25,000 state community cabinet grant to create a town economic development plan and to authorize the chairman to execute all agreements relative thereto. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Okay,
Take a vote.
Oh, jeez, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun.
Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Shavafis? Aye. And Campuchico, so it passes.
Okay, so thank you. We also have a grant award in the amount, I have $4,800 from the state recycling program, funds program. And I want to thank the Board of Health, and the health agents in particular for putting this grant together. And this $4,800 grant supports it supports the town's efforts to prioritize, reuse, and recycle. I can continue our solid waste reduction efforts. And this is in a grant, and this is in the amount of $4,800. I recommend acceptance of this grant as well from the state.
Does the board have any questions?
No, just congrats to the Board of Health. I think they usually get this every year, actually, something like
Yeah,
this.
it's an annual program.
Yeah, so they continue it, and I think it's great. Thank you.
So,
Do we need to accept it? Mr.
yes,
Chairman?
I'll entertain a motion to accept the state recycling dividends program grant of $4,800 through the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program, and to authorize the chairman to execute all agreements relative thereto.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull.
Aye.
Dr. Z.
Aye.
And Campuchico's and I, it passes.
So like, and then as was mentioned earlier, earlier late this afternoon, we received notice that we've been awarded a community compact IT grant in the amount of $17,000, and this will be used to upgrade our network infrastructure, and to improve our firewalls and network security. And I expect more information about this to be forthcoming, but I just wanted to give.
So we'll have more information next week.
Hopefully by the meeting on the 8th, we'll. I can have more information on that, so.
Just let me know.
I just want to make people aware that there was an individual, very talented person, who is the Bristol County Agricultural School representative on the Dayton Industrial Commission, who volunteered her expertise, because that's what she does at Bristol Ag, and consulted on this project for free. Those consultants are $125 an hour. And she graciously gave of her time to help Mr. Bowman with this grant and taking a look at our needs. So I don't know if Chair would accept a motion to send a letter of thanks to Lauren Howard for her efforts.
So a second.
There's
Call for any discussion? Now I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull.
Aye.
Dr. Z.
Before I go, I just wanted to say, is there any way, do we have like a template of these thank you letters so we're not writing a new every time?
We don't.
Like, I know we have to put some new stuff in there, but,
Yeah.
okay, that was my only thing. Second.
Yeah, we probably should have a template.
Let's say something.
Yeah.
It's already been seconded, that's a call for a vote.
Aye.
Dr. Z.
Yep.
And Campuchico's and I, it passes.
So then as a follow-up to all of our grant efforts, I'm actually working with Dr. Z, and we're creating a grant spreadsheet so we can track all of our grants when they're due. We have a lot of grants due at different times of the year. So in all times of the year, we want to make sure we're on top of them and on track. So probably by the end of the month, we'll have actually a spreadsheet and something to report on that.
Do you mind if I add something to that, Mr. Chairman?
No, we don't.
So you were being way too nice. I am behind the 8 ball, I
It's
guess.
early in the night.
Right? I'm behind the 8 ball. I have a lot going on with starting a new job, but I promise we will get this done. But I'm not, I think both of us are not, like, I don't know every grant out there. So what I asked the town administrator to do, since I'm sure that people involved in land use and conservation are much more keyed into those grants than I am, is to, once we have what we'll be applying for, like from our office, we can distribute it to different like departments and committees, chairs, clerks, and they can add to it. So we have like a living document. We know what other people are applying for, and that way we can make sure everyone stays on track to meet their deadlines. So I want to thank the town administrator for being patient with me since I'm late. I'm getting back to him on that, but we'll have it before the 2022 year starts.
Very good. Old business, Bristol Plymouth Regional Technical High School MSBA project.
After the Bristol Plymouth presentation, I had some concerns, as did we all. I have a network of friends and former students who represent many of the towns in the district. As I mentioned to you, I taught at Bristol Plymouth. A couple members, one selectman in the town of Berkeley, Wendy Cochran, is a BP grad, former student of mine. Another BP grad, former student of mine, is Board of Selectmen Chairman Joe Pacheco, also from Bristol Plymouth. So I reached out to them, and they voiced the same concerns that I had, and I believe my colleagues have. None of us are against the school. We have problems with the price tag. So what I was able to do, with the help of Mayor Sean O'Connor, was to formulate a meeting with representatives from all of the towns in the Bristol Plymouth district. Mr. Mullen and myself, so that we don't run afoul of the open meeting law. We'll be attending that meeting this Friday at 11 a.m. to put together a response to the significant amount of money that each of the towns are facing. They all are concerned about the cost factor. We requested at our meeting a breakdown of the entire budget for that project. And today, I disseminated that information to Mayor Shauna's office, and they're going to print copies so that every town will have a copy of that financial breakdown. To how much we're going to get into it on Friday, I'm not sure. But I do know that we are going to put together a unified statement to Bristol Plymouth. In addition, as we speak, Town Clerk Mark Pacheco is attending a Bristol Plymouth school committee meeting. Bristol Plymouth is asking that the vote be held the first Saturday in January, which I believe is the 8th.
Yes, and they've actually updated, they actually voted about 20 minutes ago to have the election on January 29th.
Many towns had problems with the 8th, including Dyke. And I say that from what Mr. Pacheco voiced to me. Because we talked, because of the way I knew about the meeting, but I had problems. So I went to him today and I said, Mark, are you going? He said, oh yeah. I said, are you okay with the 8th? He said, oh no. I know I spoke to the representative in Rehoboth, and the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen unanimously, and the town administrator were totally against the 8th. So I will keep the board informed about the results of that meeting. I'm not quite sure. I know the leadership has problems with it. How the voters feel, that's another matter.
So will you be bringing back information to us?
Absolutely.
The next, so before this letter goes out, that we take a look at it?
That was my question.
You said there was something about you're gonna,
Correct.
you're all gonna work on a letter to send.
Yes,
Yes,
okay.
yes,
No,
yes,
no, that's fair,
As a
sure.
board, we
No, I
need
get
to,
that. Yeah.
look at it and see.
See, that's how I feel. See, now you're coming over to my, just,
Go back and forth.
but no, I just,
Yeah.
just to be clear, I stand by, everything that you, said, Selectman Hull, and the concerns that, of the boards that you reiterated. I just wanna be clear, my other concern isn't just the price tag. My concern was, my feeling was, if they wanted everyone to get on board, we should have been allowed to have input in the actual project. Someone should have come along with options at some point to each town. They haven't even gone to the Taunton City Council, by the way, yet. So they haven't made their rounds everywhere they need to go, but there should have been more engagement. And I feel like if stakeholders in municipalities were able to give their input on behalf of their constituents, there would have been more support for the project probably, but that didn't happen. So I feel like this is a binary choice that always gets put when there's a lack of, and I'm just giving my opinion, a lack of proper planning, and public engagement. You either have to choose yes or no. And so I look forward to seeing, that being said, I look forward to seeing the statement. And I'm glad that the other communities in the district are getting on board together. And I know maybe every community won't agree, but just the fact that you're having that conversation together, I think is really important.
To follow up on that, I had the pleasure of serving on the Dayton Elementary School Addition Project that Arthur Almeida chaired. And the transparency and the steps that we took, I thought everyone did that. And
Assumptions.
we had several forums where the public could come every step of the way. Even to a point, we had one forum which was incredible, where they picked the colors, the paint and the rug. And they
That'd be the longest meeting in Dayton.
And it would have been
It wasn't-
it's
I won't get into how we did it, it worked out perfect. Sandy Curtis was very persuasive on it. BP had none of that. No forums, no public input. They made presentations to the board of selectmen. That's not a forum, that's not public input. That makes it, going to make it very difficult to pass.
Well, the project itself sounds very good. However, it's the dollar amount and how it's going to impact our town with all the other stuff that we know
And that
that
was
needs to be done. So, I mean, it sounds beautiful for a new building, but it's $325 million, 3 times the cost for the Bristol Aggie. Now, I understand Bristol Aggie did knock all the buildings down, I get that. But we should have had some input on this.
Not even just input, Mr. Chairman, but we have other projects, like the town administrator has been bending over backwards to get this capital outlay committee going, who's now got all these projects that they're gonna start discussing and figuring out the order of things and funding and all that. Why I say I wish they had brought it sooner is because now we just have a project that has been dropped onto our lap that we didn't even get to have a conversation about where it fits into the plans that are already correct, or the selectmen's 5-year plan or any of that, so.
I do have a question for the chair, Mr. Mullin. Mr. Plymouth had said, agreed, they would reach out to Jim Agia to review the project. To your knowledge, has that happened?
I have not heard that they have, but that again doesn't mean that they haven't, and I will follow up with.
I want to thank you, Selectman Hull, for putting this together, meeting this Friday. I look forward to your report next week.
I was somewhat surprised when I reached out, when I just said straight up, like Wendy, over at Berkeley, how do you feel about it? Oh, no. And everyone I talked to, George Solis over at Holman, Skip Patney, they all voiced the same concern. Even Joe Pacheco, who is a big supporter of Mr. Plymouth, he's given money, he's done so much for that school. He's letting, I agree something needs to be done. We can't afford it. They're price tag.
Former Selectman Nancy, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was the rep to Bristol Plymouth early on when they were talking about the initial project, which was going to be a renovation. The main issues at the time were replace the roof because it's the original roof, and also the facade around the building has asbestos in it, and that was going to be very costly. I was not aware they were going to build a new school until I saw that at a selectmen's meeting. There was early on, up until COVID hit, a number of meetings when all of the towns were allowed to send reps, because we had breakfast meetings at Bristol Plymouth, and there were representatives from the Department of Education there on the funding. And early on, it was a minimum of 50% that they were going to get, and maybe a little bit more. It was at the same time that we were talking about the Aggie School project. So it was back to when I came back to the board, way back when, 15. Obviously, the Aggie School project was further along. The towns were represented at the Aggie School project because of Financial Advisory Committee, and I served on that. And that was the committee that actually voted approval of the bond issue, because the state law that relates to funding a agricultural vocational county school is different than a regional district. So that's how that came about. But I would bring back periodic reports to the Board of Selectmen. And I can remember Chairman Taylor, when we were talking about it, that he asked for a motion from the board to support my voting in favor of the project on behalf of the town of Dayton. We did that. When you talk about representation at Bristol Plymouth, you've been a member of that school committee. How often has he come before you and reported? Now, since I came back in 15 to now, there was a change, but I believe the person holding the job now was an incumbent and graduated from the school years ago, if it's the person I'm thinking of. But in any case, that was the extent of your representation, just like at DR, obviously, it's only 2 towns, so you have more people physically there, but they have weighted votes. There's one person that represents the town of Dayton on the Bristol committee. That person should have been reporting back to you on a regular basis. When I would go to those meetings as a selectman, not as a elected school committee person, obviously, but I would come back and tell the board, I went to the meeting and this is what they were talking about. Now, to the best of my knowledge, those meetings ceased when COVID came, because I didn't get to go to any more. They weren't holding meetings and they weren't having Zoom meetings. So again, until I heard at the selectmen's meeting, it's now a whole new building. I was not aware it had done a complete turnaround. So I really think if you're going to discuss or mention the fact that towns were involved, you've had a representative on that committee from day one, and that person should have been reporting back to you. I mean, we've only got one person. But when I went there as a representative of the Board of Selectmen, when I went to the Aggie School meetings as a representative from the Board of Selectmen, I brought the information back. So any town, every town and city that's involved with Bristol Plymouth has somebody there, and everyone's got weighted votes. Now, I agree, there should have been public meetings. I know of no public meetings, if, quite frankly, if I had known there was gonna be a public meeting, whether it was in a town or at the school, I would have gone because I was still interested in the project. I was interested in it from day one. And I was not aware of any meetings at all, period. I can tell you at the Aggie School, it was different. Now, obviously, it's because it's being built in our town. So a lot of town officials involved with that project because they have to be. But the very first meeting was a community meeting, and I was invited to it, and I invited Tom Ferry. And from there, it was Tom, and I would go, and Jim Aguirre, and that was before we get into the technical stuff where Jim would be involved with building permits and things like that. So that kind of informational meeting, to the best of my knowledge, were not held at BP. So it could have been related to COVID. That did not preclude your elected member of that school committee from sending you a note, asking to meet with you, attending a meeting and saying, hey, this is where we are with this. I mean, so I understand I certainly understand the value of having a meeting with all the communities. But I will say to all of them, make sure your school committee people are there. These are the people who are elected to represent you. And if they didn't communicate with their boards of selectmen, that should be pointed out to them. We weren't kept informed. We didn't know until all of a sudden, it's a done deal and we want to set a date for a district-wide vote. So going forward, I could suggest you invite all of those school committee members to be there, because now it almost looks like it's a done deal. It's just going out to a vote. But you know what? Every one of those communities should have had input somewhere along the way in the form of a public meeting. And if it couldn't have been held because of COVID, all of those school committee people should have been talking to their boards of selectmen and maybe holding local meetings. I said, we had meetings when we were Zoom meetings, but that would have gotten information up to the board from when I stopped going, because the meetings weren't being held, to the point of we're ready to start voting on this. So I would suggest everybody gets in touch with their elected school committee people, because it's that important. That's why they were there.
So is it possible to invite this person to our next meeting on December 8th?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to invite our school committee.
I think it's at Dutra.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Yes, that's our BP rep. Yep.
Oh, it's right behind you.
Yep. Yeah, you can
I
give
put
an
a big
update
fence up, but
tonight.
now
I'm curious about something that Mrs. Goulart just said. And my understanding is, Dr. Z, you are the liaison with Dayton Public.
It's someone from Rehoboth now.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it's Jim and that night for some reason.
Okay.
I could be wrong, it's one of
Yeah,
them.
and I involved with Bristol Aggie. Did we have, I mean, obviously, we must have had a liaison, or did you just do that on your own?
When that project was initially presented, again, Aggie School was already ahead of it by a few approvals that you had to go through. And we knew Aggie was going to be moving forward, and we knew it was going to be coming for a vote. The three superintendents, BP, Aggie, and DR, talk regularly, because obviously they want to make sure they're offering programs that the kids want without duplicating effort and all that kind of stuff. So they talk to one another. And it was out of that I believe, and it's always been Superintendent Margalis that's been involved with this, the building thing. And the notice came into the selectman's office, and it may have been because I was the person going to the Aggie meetings and had been quite involved with that. And I brought more people to the Aggie meetings initially because I knew they'd be interested. Obviously, people like Jim would have been involved eventually. But we were in, let's say, on the ground floor as far as asking us what we thought and similar to what you're talking about, what's going to happen. But I know that I went to the school a number of times, and they usually scheduled early morning meetings. They were breakfast meetings because they wanted to get people to come in before they went to work, because not everybody obviously was retired. So it wasn't a formal appointment by the Board of Selectmen like I was to the Bristol County Financial Advisory Committee, because you have to do that. You have to do that, and it has to be a selectman. But I was included way back when, and I didn't miss any, and as I said, I think they came to a halt because of COVID. But, yeah.
So it wasn't formally done.
No, see, we don't have per se an elected school committee member that sits on the Aggie School. They have a board of trustees, okay? That's the governing board under county government structure for the school. Bristol Plymouth, we have elected representative with weighted votes. I think I was elected I think I was asked to attend because I had expressed an interest when we were talking to Aggie and I knew BP was coming. And so I think my name probably came up and they said, why don't you ask her if she wants to come? So I went and I would report back to the board. So that's how that all came about. Dr. Z?
Yes, through the chair. I did just want to ask you, Assessor Goulart. I do remember taking that vote when we were under the impression that it was a renovation project. Do you remember, because again, I don't recall ever a Bristol Plymouth School Committee member ever presenting anything, so I think the only information I had honestly came from you, because you were going. So when did it change from being a renovation project to the new school, like the project that's there now?
I think it must have happened when the study committee got involved, because the study committee would not only have looked at renovating the building, they would have been looking at curriculum requirements. And I think that the more that they looked into that, the more they realized, because I've also heard that the facilities, the classroom facilities now don't meet the educational requirements, so they've got to, I don't know if it's expand them or whatever. And again, all of this conversation was taking place while the Aggie School was really coming to the point. It's going to come for a vote, and how it would be handled in the county, special legislation and everything else, which regional school districts don't get into. But you are correct. As I said, there was no information sent to the Board of Selectmen directly from the BP School Committee, either from the superintendent's office or from the school committee or the school committee rep. There were no interim reports. And again, up until COVID hit, I would go to those. And I would go to the open house in the fall, and I would always see the superintendent. I'd say to him, hey, what's happening with the project? Are we going to be having a meeting? And I think the last time that conversation took place was just before everything got shut down due to COVID.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is the town administrator's evaluation. We all received the self-evaluation from town administrator Mike Mullen. In addition, tonight, we all received each other's evaluation of the town administrator. Does anybody have any questions regarding the self-evaluation that town administrator Mullen has submitted?
I didn't have any questions, Mr. Chairman.
I think in the past, we've actually gone over each report. Is that
Read them all, yeah.
yes?
So like, I think, number one, then you did, and then, but it's your discretion, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so I'll start off with my report that I submitted. So there's 8 items that we need to review the town administrator on, and we rate him from 1 to 5, 5 being excellent, 4 above average, 3 consistent performer, 2 developing performer, and 1 needs improvement. So the first evaluation is for his job knowledge and skills. I rated him 85. Mike is very knowledgeable of the needs of the town of Dayton. He came prepared to hit the ground running. His interview showed us that he had done his research as he had familiarized himself with Dayton. He has always answered my questions, and if he didn't have the answer, he knew where to get the proper answer and will get back to me promptly. In many situations, he is proactive rather than reactive, which I respect. Should we go through each one's like 1 one, two, or
You
just
can
Mike?
ask, you decide, it's your
No, I
choice.
don't remember what we did in the past.
We usually, like, we would do one, I think,
Everybody does
remember,
one,
we would do, number one, he reads his from the self-evaluation, then you, then Selectman Hull, then me, whatever the order is that you want. But we do read that.
So I wrote a book, so I don't have to read.
Well, yours is in the packet.
It is in the packet, we
Yeah, yeah,
all, I
that's
think
me.
you've all had an opportunity to look at it. We've given this earlier, it wasn't like we've just given this today. So I'll ask you, Dr. Z, on your evaluation of job knowledge and skills.
So for this one, I gave Mike, and now mind you, I just want to preface this by saying, I'm so proud that you're here, Mike. But I grew up in grad school and we graded on a curve, so I apologize.
No.
Tough grader. Job knowledge and skills, I gave you a 3.5 and I wrote that Mike is knowledgeable and skilled in his role, but is still learning the differences / nuances between county and municipal operations. Mike can work in this role independently, but he's also a team player and understands how his job innervates all other departments and department heads. He keeps up to date with his skills and is always willing to learn and develop, and I gave the MCPPO certification as an example for procurement. And I wrote that you also keep up to date with changing federal and state laws and regulations.
Selectman Hull?
I gave Mr. Mullen a score of 5. Michael Mullen brings a very strong and diverse work experience in both state and municipal government to the town. His level of experience enables him to do an outstanding job in understanding all aspects of town government administration.
The second evaluation item is quality of work. I gave him a score of 4. I've been impressed with his quality of work. He always comes prepared to our Board of Selectmen meetings. As noted earlier, if he doesn't have the answer, he gets back to us within a reasonable time with his answer. He did an excellent job with the PowerPoint presentation for a public meeting prior to our special town meeting. This was very helpful for our residents and the board. Every month it gets better and better. Dr. Z?
I gave Mike a 3.5, and I wrote that Mike's work is thorough and accurate with a high attention to detail. Mike needs to better balance multiple tasks with meetings in order to consistently meet deadlines and objectives in a timely manner. And Mike should understand that he's not expected to make every board, committee, or commission meeting, but that Mike demonstrates a commitment to continuous improvement as evidenced through your participation in the Massachusetts Town Administrators / Managers Association meetings, etc.
Thank you. Selectman Hull?
I also gave Mr. Mullen a score of 5. His work ethic is inspiring, as is his dedication to the town of Dayton. I received emails from Mr. Mullen early in the morning. I received emails late in the evening, and the question I always ask him, are you at the office? And the answer is yes. His work ethic is an inspiration to myself, but it's also to many employees who have noticed how dedicated and hardworking he is.
Thank you, Selectman Hull. The next evaluation is planning and organization. I gave him a score of 4. As chairman of the Board of Selectmen, by the Board of Selectmen, he has always kept me informed of situations that have arisen in town. He has good suggestions as to how to handle certain situations. As town administrator, he often has to deal with situations independently. He uses his knowledge and skills to properly address the concerns of the town. He has good communication skills and keeps the board, department heads, and our employees on what needs to be done and his expectations. Dr. Z?
So for planning and organization, I gave Mike a 2, which means developing performer. And I wrote, Mike needs to manage his time and his daily schedule more effectively in order to allow for quicker follow-up / action on items discussed by the Board of Selectmen at their meetings and to meet deadlines. And my examples are coordinating the impact fees joint meeting and moving forward with the clerical wage and classification study. For Mike, prioritization of projects based on deadlines or priority for the town is key. It may be helpful for Mike to reduce the amount of meetings he attends in order to focus on the work at hand. In addition, it may be beneficial, and this is just my own suggestion, please, you do not need to do it. It may be beneficial for Mike to designate 1 day a week for work only, like a day with no meetings at all. And I wrote that you identify and utilize resources effectively and responsibly, and that you have excellent communication skills and always listen actively. And I just wanted to say that my comments not only just about Mike, but different things that I had observed after the former town administrator had left, and a big issue that I had confronted was time management. A lot gets thrown at you in that office, so I just wanted to provide the context for my comments.
Thank you, Selectman.
I've been very impressed with Mr. Mullins' efforts. Planning and organization, I gave him a 5. Mr. Mullin has demonstrated excellent planning and organizational skills. He is a good negotiator, and his ability to bring opposing parties to agreement on controversial issues has been remarkable. I personally have been involved in some of those issues and brought them to his attention, and where he was able to work out agreements with some very angry residents in town who were acting on pure emotion on certain issues involving certain departments. And he was able to resolve it in a way that it was a win-win. And I say win-win. The people that walked away from the table were very happy, and the department was as well.
Thank you, Selectman Hull. The next evaluation item is teamwork and attitude. I gave Mr. Mullin 5. He sees himself as a team player, not just as an administrator. He's always receptive to listen to a different perspective. He doesn't feel challenged if you disagree with him, and is willing to look at things differently. He makes himself readily available to everybody. He is always respectful to everybody. He participates in many of the town events, which he is not obligated to do.
Teamwork and attitude. I gave the town administrator a 4.5. I wrote that Mike is receptive to directives and is always diplomatic in his communications or when expressing concerns. He's willing to hear constructive criticism, and I'm confident he will act on it, such as paring back meetings to meet deadlines and complete projects. Mike is always extremely respectful of coworkers and residents and handles difficult situations with the utmost tact. Mike addresses issues head-on, which I appreciate, because I'm the same way, with the appropriate individuals in order to solve problems. He is a great ambassador for the town and approaches work with genuine interest and curiosity. Mike is always willing to help.
Selectman Hull.
Teamwork and attitude, a score of 5. Mr. Mullin's negotiation and people skills are amazing and have earned him high praise from both the citizens of Dayton and the town employees.
Thank you. The next item is number 5, dependability. I gave him a 4.5. He's very dependable and dedicated to the town of Dayton. He has always been available to me 24/7. He uses his time well. Dr. C?
Yours is so quick. I can be quicker next time with mine. This took me a while. Dependability, great. I wrote that Mike is extremely hardworking, but as he is still new to this role and to the town, he's still finding a workflow in order to meet deadlines and objectives. Mike always gives his best effort and observes established working hours, actually probably works way out of the working hours, and is always punctual. That car is always there on Friday, and is always punctual, but Mike, and I mean this part, Mike should feel more comfortable using the granted flexibility, such as working from home on occasion or on some Fridays, as the previous town administrator did. She had a young family as well. He always appropriately manages use of sick time and seldom, if ever, takes unscheduled time off. Mike is extremely dependable.
Thank you. Selectman Hull.
Dependability, score of 5. Incredible work ethic, often working 12-hour days and on a scheduled day off. It's truly an asset to the community. I know with the formation of recreation of the Industrial Development Commission. He's played a major role and has brought in Circuit and Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and we'll talk more about that in a few minutes, have been very valuable to that committee and to the town.
The next evaluation item is 6, independent initiative. I gave a score of 4. He consistently shows us that he is able to work independently, and his work shows it.
I'm not writing more than a sentence like someone.
That's a guy, Joe.
Excuse me, surprised there's no questions in here. Independent initiative, I gave Mike a 4. And just as a aside, I do not believe in perfect scores, so that's why I never give anyone a perfect score. Mike can perform his role independently, but he's also a consummate team player. He does suggest more efficient ways to complete tasks or implement more streamlined processes, which I really appreciate. He's self-motivated and shows an enthusiasm for professional development, both for himself and for his colleagues. Mike is not beholden to existing approaches and consistently suggests improvements, such as you did with the upcoming tax rate presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Z. Selectman Hull?
Independent initiative, score of 5. He brings a wealth of experience and contacts from his work at the state and local level. This experience and his contacts have proven to be very valuable to the town, whether it be at the State House, whether it be municipalities of Brockton, Taunton, or his contacts in Norfolk County, where he served as the commissioner. Those contacts have helped us in getting advice from other towns. But as I found out recently in the work on the Bristol Plymouth project, having contacts with other community members builds coalitions. And I've also come to learn that his relationship with Pat Haddad through her former administrative assistant, Ken, has been very, very valuable to this town.
The last item is leadership and managerial effectiveness. I gave a 3.5. Mike is an effective manager and leader. This is demonstrated in our department head meetings, good listener. He needs to occasionally not to be the diplomat, but be willing to confront a town employee when you're expressing an inappropriate opinion.
That's good. Mike, so first of all, on this, I need to resend you my performance evaluation because I do want to remove one of the sentences, so I'm not going to read that sentence because it's inaccurate. Mike has gained employees' trust and respect by showing respect and by pulling in key stakeholders to address problems as a team. Mike delegates tasks. As previously mentioned, Mike is a consummate team player and is mindful of the goals and objectives of colleagues, the Board of Selectmen, and the town. He's a great motivator for the staff, and I gave you a 4.5.
Leadership, managerial effectiveness, score of 4. Exceptional leadership, managerial skills. This evaluator would like to see more attention spent on delegation of tasks. Mr. Mullen's work ethic and demeanor have earned him the respect of the town of Dyke. The reason why I gave him a 4 and not a 5, as I've heard from my colleagues, I'm concerned by the amount of time that Mr. Mullen puts into the job and the prospects of burnout. The idea of closing the door, setting aside private time is would be very helpful. Not just for the stress level in your house.
No, thank you.
Even working, having a day where you work from home would be strongly encouraged.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I know that town administrator always has his door open. I've also suggested that he close the door, that he got a shade there.
Yeah.
But I know when I was a manager a few years back, when I would do that myself, workers, employees got offended by that, so he doesn't have an open door policy, but there are times you just need to.
Yeah, the balance.
To do some of the work. So I also encourage you, if there's an opportunity to work at home, that's something that be doing more often than what you're doing right now.
Appreciate that, thank you.
So your self-evaluation score was 30 out of 35. Mine was also a 30 out of 35. I'm not sure.
I was a 25 out of
35, and I think you might have been 34 out of 35. Is that?
Yes.
Doing a quick math. So I don't think we should vote on this. We need to sign. I believe we need to sign his evaluation, that we've accepted his evaluation. I don't think we have to necessarily take a vote on it. And obviously, he has our evaluations. So, Mr. Mullin, do you have any questions for us? Maybe something we can do differently.
Yeah, imagine.
So no, I don't have anything, honestly. I mean, so I've been here, I think, 8 or 9 months now. So like in back in January, it was a real honor to be appointed as a town administrator, and every day it's been an honor as well. I think so I think everything mentioned in terms of the workflow, in terms of the work from home, in terms of the burnout and everything is accurate. I mean, it has been an adjustment, over these 8 to 9 months. I've been trying to get, into a rhythm and into the workflow, and it's a work in progress. So in all that feedback, I take really seriously, it's helpful. So in heading forward into the FY23 budget, into the capital planning budget, we have a lot of work to do, and I look forward to working with everyone to do it. So thank you.
Yeah, and I said, it was always my philosophy when I went, and I've said to town administrator and all of that, my job and my family are two most important things in my life, but not in that order. And so it's important that, I mean, you're a young man with a young family.
They're incredible too, and they're as I was over the weekend. I mean, so as I was over the weekend, I was here with my family. They're incredibly supportive. They've been amazing too. So like, I'm really, really lucky.
You brought your family Saturday night to the lights on Saturday morning. Unfortunately, we ran out of hot chocolate.
It's okay. We got McDonald's Happy Meals out.
So that kind of made up for everything, but unfortunately, we weren't able to. But it's nice that you bring your family in. I have to say that one of the convincing things that made me recommend that Mike become our town administrator was that even before he got hired, and I would say it's a couple months before he got hired, he came to the food bank, worked at the food bank, and I just sort of felt that was really dedicated to the town. He was going to be a big part of it, and he's come back since then. And
he came to the town meeting before he was.
And I've discouraged him from coming all the time to the food. I said, you don't have to be here every time. Kids play soccer, all that kind of good stuff, family stuff. So, but it's appreciated when they do come, but don't feel obligated to always come. But it was really a big selling point for me. And I made the choice, my personal choice, that you should be our town administrator.
May I make just a few comments? So I just wanted to be very clear that my comment regarding the town administrator, my desire to have him shut the door one day a week, is really just because just myself, like when we were recruiting, I shouldn't say recruiting you, but when we were going through that recruitment process of, we had candidates and interviews and things like that. One thing that I found really hard was the ability just to get something done in the office. Is you would start typing or whatever, like I was working on the boarding committee, because the door is open, you just have people waltzing in, they just want to talk. Like, it's not even necessarily about town stuff, it's just how, how's mom and dad, or how are the kids, and it just made it very hard to like get something done, especially when you're in a workflow. The other thing I wanted to mention is I agree, I don't think we need to take a vote, but we do need to clear up the goals thing before we sign the town administrator's form, which has signature lines for all three of us and for him. Specifically, we need to come to a consensus on what two goals we want from our side of the table and what two we want for him.
So correct me, I thought in the past that we decided not to have goals as part of the evaluation.
We decided.
Was that just for town employees, managerial employees?
No. I think it was specifically for the town administrator, and it wasn't that we weren't gonna have them, except they weren't gonna count towards the score. So we were still gonna have them, they still are gonna have, goals, it's just not a component of the numerical score calculation. To that point, Mr. Chairman, for the town administrator, first of all, in true town administrative fashion, he gave us 6 goals instead of 2. So I think, do we wanna start there? Like which ones we wanna agree with? I mean, some of these, he's gonna do no matter what.
Yeah, no.
You're
part of
gonna
the
work
job.
on the
Yeah.
budget.
Yep.
Regardless, so for me, I crossed that one out because it's gonna
I
happen.
actually thought that was one of my goals.
You did?
I looked at his goals and
You better write yours first.
I picked 2 of his goals, obviously.
Which one?
I picked work on fiscal year 2023 operating budget,
Okay,
and also to continue to work on our capital planning for the town.
okay, I'm fine with the capital plan, because that needs to happen, so I can help. Do you agree with that? For
On the
his,
capital plan, yes, on the fiscal 2023 budget, that's part of the job description.
yeah, so that's why I don't agree with that as an official.
Yeah, that's
goal.
fine, yeah.
Okay.
So what is the second, what,
I'm gonna be honest with you, I think it should be develop a proposed ARPA budget plan. We wanna have ARPA stuff. I know we're getting a consultant, or we think we're gonna get a consultant and all that, but that's important that we have a plan. All those projects, all that money isn't gonna be used right away. Some of it might be used for sewer. That project is, we don't even have a project, so it's gonna take a long time.
yeah, so I'm not sure if that's something that we were going to discuss at the capital planning committee, as to how we
So,
look at
so
every.
yeah, it would probably be both, it would be. So yeah, it would be a process I would envision between the capital, between the capital outlay and the board of selectmen. So it would be an intertwined process.
Selectmen help.
Although I understand what Dr. Z is saying, and my understanding throughout the process, as the projects came in, I kept asking the same question. How was the ARPA funds? Who's gonna make that decision? So the answer I got has been pretty consistent. Capital planning, then board of selectmen. So the one area that I would like to see included, because it was mentioned as a criticism, is managing the clerical union wage and classification study. Something that been going on, my understanding, it's gonna happen, and it hasn't, and one of my colleagues pointed that out and as a criticism. So based on the fact that it hasn't been done, and there's concern about the timeliness of it, that it needed to go. It is also my understanding, talking to different town workers, that will also impact budget negotiations. And I know in one instance, a non-union employee, the discussion of that position is waiting for this classification study.
I just wanted to make one comment. I just wanted to be clear to the town administrator. That wasn't just a criticism of the inability for, you personally to get this going. Part of it did fall on me, quite frankly, when the former town administrator left. So it is something that has been in the works, but my understanding is you have made progress. I know you were on the phone with one of the firms the other day, and I thank you for keeping it on your radar. I'm sure the union does as well.
Absolutely.
So I would agree with Selectman Hull, that should be our second goal.
Yep.
For the town administrator.
I'm okay with that. And with the understanding that there's gonna be an ARPA budget plan regardless, right? Something's gonna come to us and we'll have to.
Yeah, like, and it's going to involve a cap. And the ARPA plan is going to involve a capital planning document as well, so they're gonna be interchangeable.
Awesome. So do we have a consensus, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
for
this
the
time should we take a vote on those two goals?
Sure.
for the town administrator?
Sure.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Selectmen accept the town administrator's two goals of one, manage the clerical union wage and classification study with a kickoff this month. And two, to build a successful draft capital improvement plan in conjunction with the Capital Outlay Committee and in consultation with the Board of Selectmen.
So a second,
Second.
any further discussion? I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z?
Aye.
And Campuchico is an aye, and it passes.
Yep, so we still have.
Actually, didn't get any input from Trump.
Well,
He was
there
okay
it
with
is.
it, he was
Yeah,
okay.
he's okay with it.
Yeah, no, I don't have any problems with those. Yeah, they were including my options as well, so.
Selectman Hull.
It is probably a management prerogative. But I think it's important that Mr. Mullen have our backing of what I'm about to ask. It has come to my attention that department heads in particular have come up through the back stairs or have come to Mr. Mullen's door when it is closed. Is it possible for us to create policy that all requests to see Mr. Mullen come through his two administrative assistants rather than people just coming to his door?
If he's okay with it, I'm okay with it. That would be, it would probably be helpful, but I would defer to him on that.
I mean, I even had personal experience with the doors closed when I was in a meeting and people just.
Oh, yeah. Oh, if you don't like it, absolutely. I put a sign on the glass that said, please don't interrupt. I was writing a grant and people just.
So, it's not only the department heads, though, I'm also guilty of that. I did it as recently as, yes, I see the doors closed, I see that he's busy. I don't open the door, not for us, and I know he's gonna, let me in, like, that's everybody in. But I tend to agree that might be a good policy to run it by Karen or Leanne for us and see if he's gonna be available. I mean, just because he's in his office typing something doesn't mean he can just stop doing that and listen to our grievances or whatever. So I do think it's that is a good suggestion. Ms. Brady, how do you feel about that? Because it's going to impact.
You okay being the gatekeepers?
Absolutely, absolutely, we do try.
You do,
But we
I know
miss
you do.
people, they sneak by.
They go right down.
Right in, yeah.
If we know he's busy, we do try.
They really do a good job.
Discussion with Leanne today, and she's in total.
I'm okay with that. The only thing is who's gonna write it, and we're obviously gonna have it be part of the policy manual. I'm happy to write a draft. It should be short. It should be like 3 seconds.
Yeah, see, so see the Board of Selectmen, town administrator,
Correct.
or executive assistant in order to make appointment.
Everything should be by appointment.
Yeah.
And then this will force people, I'll just say residents, whoever, just to plan better, so he can plan his schedule better. It was really tough for me, so I can only imagine.
I had a department head cut me off, I had an appointment.
Yeah, you did, I remember.
I do think that's a good idea, though. So it should make it a little bit easier.
I can get a draft over to you.
That's good. Yeah, no, that's great.
Thank you.
Like to see, thank you.
So you don't have to.
Okay, you said 2 or 3 lines. Right?
Yeah, 2, yeah. Like one of your evaluation responses.
Yeah.
For the evaluators goals, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what we wanna agree on. I have wrote, develop a proposed ARPA budget plan. It doesn't sound like we need to do that, but I do feel very strongly about my other goal, which is for the town administrator, because this is the goal that I put for the police chief for this year, earlier this year. To work with the police lieutenant and the police chief to move towards certification and accreditation of the Dayton Police Department. We have a beautiful brand new station. I just wanna note that certification and accreditation leads to things like less cases, when action has been taken, law enforcement action, less cases get thrown out. With all of this police state reform coming from the state legislature or proposed reform coming from the legislature, I think it's really important that we have an up-to-date policy manual. That's one of the requirements to be certified and accredited. We know people in the industry who do accreditation of all the different police stations and departments from different municipalities. I think it's really important that we do that. That's really the only goal I have.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say good night. I'll see you guys next week. Good meeting so far.
In person, right?
We're holding
Yes,
you
sir.
to that.
Even with my beard, I'll be there.
And you said you're bringing donuts.
What?
He said he's bringing
I'll bring a
donuts.
dozen donuts from Dunkin' Donuts, yes.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, and how do you feel about that goal with
So on the accreditation, I rather hope, I hope we actually have an administration at the PD who understands this as a priority and would make it as a priority, like, so like a goal for me, actually, so I can have it as a goal, I don't really have experiences. So in all of it, either like I can hold them accountable as they are.
That's what I think.
That's what who's gonna oversee it? If it, like, do you have any idea of what's been done since last year when I gave this as a goal? Like, I hadn't heard anything.
The administration of the PD, they have established actually 3 committees. One is focused on policies, there's another one focused on traffic enforcement, and the third,
Traffic dog, right? Wasn't that one of them?
yeah, that's number 3, but I wanna say there's like a workplace and culture.
That would be good.
There's something to that effect as well, so there are 3 or 4 policies that they so you're actively working on, so they are moving forward.
Who's on these committees?
So
I just never heard anything.
You know, this was mentioned, I think, what was it? Was it?
So I think at the department meeting last week.
Last week, yeah. And I think the lieutenant's involved in these committees, my understanding, so he'd be, I think.
Like in the rank and file offices as well, like he's appointed officers on like on every committee, like so like it's.
Which I think is good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, sorry, I can't go to the department meetings, so I hadn't heard that. I think that's good. As long as something's coming down.
It's like,
Regarding this goal, how long has this issue been an issue?
So I just want to be clear, it's not an issue. It's more like it's a really prestigious thing to be federally accredited.
How long have we been talking about?
It's just been less than a year,
Oh, okay.
maybe coming on a year now.
Okay.
So my understanding is a certification manager has been appointed, I believe you're correct, I believe it's the lieutenant. It sounds like work is being done on it, I think that's great. So I apologize, it sounds like work's being done on it, and if we don't wanna have it be a goal, but I would like some kind of a periodic update email or something, so I know what's going on.
I really support you, especially where Dr. Z and Mr. Mullin both mentioned manage clerical union wage classification study, that be included as one of the goals.
So that's his goal. So we need a different one
Okay.
than the capital outlay plan and the clerical union.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you want to just do two? I mean, it doesn't count towards.
I'm content with the two. I mean, he's obviously listed 6 or 7, I forget how many he's listed, so I think he's gonna be working on all of those. I think it's great when you just brought up about the certification for the police department. And that's not on its radar.
Yeah.
It wasn't before.
I'm sure it has been, obviously. Okay. Are you okay with 2, Selectman Hull?
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with 2.
Thank you.
So, I motion that we approve the 2 previously mentioned goals as both the evaluators' goals and the employees' goals for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Second. Any discussion? Now, I'll call for a vote, Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z?
Aye.
And Chico is an aye, and it passes. Now, we also talked, I thought, this before Selectman Hull was on board, I think. Are we going to do a semi-annual evaluation? I thought we decided we're going to do it annually.
It is annual.
We do this quick at the first one because he's still on board, and then after that, we just.
So yeah,
So
the
this
first
was
6
a
months.
compromise
Yes.
and then
to
we're-
not have a probationary period, basically, because we didn't agree with that.
So, and what we're gonna do now is annually, we'll have to
Yeah, we won't be doing. My understanding from the mid-year review is that the original intention was if there was and it wasn't just for the town administrator, for department heads and non-union employees, if there was some kind of issue that arose performance-wise, that this would give the employee a chance to remediate before the annual performance evaluation. Which we don't have that, so it's not an issue.
Thank you, members of the board, I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is new business. A, review, discuss, and act on American Rescue Plan, act for self-engagement, Clifton Larson and Allen CLA. We've all given the Mike Mullen and Joe Lang, our town accountant, the suggestions to what we should be doing as far as hiring consultants to assist us in the ARPA funds. Is that, am I correct on that?
Yeah. So yeah, for the $832,000 in the local indictment funds that are associated with the county.
And they will assist in the preparation of COVID-19 related ARPA reporting, assist in determination of applicable ARPA expenses, and assist with tracking and reporting on ARPA expenses.
Yes.
What's good? You said about the cost. Our fees for these services will be based on actual time at $150 to $250 per hour, depending on the level of experience needed by professional. Fees will be billed based on the time involved and the degree of responsibility and skill required, with our total fee not to exceed $15,000. We will also bill a technology and client support fee of 5% of all professional fees billed.
May I ask you a question about that? My understanding, Mr. Chairman, is that those fees can come out of the ARPA, correct?
Yes. So yes, absolutely, like as administrative fees, and that's in the proposed motion.
Does the board have any questions about that?
I have one more question, and I hate to be that person
No,
tonight,
you're fine.
because I know I'm more asking from my own knowledge, I know you probably have already handled that. This is more than $10,000. So was there like a bid? How did we end on, and they're very great at what they do.
Yeah.
But how did we end up here with them?
Actually, the 30B like CPA firms are exempt.
That's why we pay them the dividend. Okay, thank you. I didn't know.
That's how we pay you the big bucks to ask these questions. So good.
So thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions about this?
No, I think this is a good idea, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the town administrator for having this idea. We all have, the town has needs, and we need that ARPA money, but I think this is the wisest way.
Yeah, it's a fail-safe, it's a safeguard, really, if you will.
Thank you. So I will entertain a motion to approve the terms of the engagement between Clifton Larson, Allen and the town of Dayton to be funded as administrative expenses through the Town American Rescue Plan allocating funds.
I'm gonna second.
So move second.
Under discussion, I did just want to ask you, Mr. Chairman, do we also in the motion, obviously, I think this came from council, so.
No, it was me.
Okay, do we need to also authorize the chair to execute it, to sign it? It looks like there's only one.
Yeah, no, I would recommend that, I'm sorry, that was not.
Can you amend your?
Element.
Okay.
Thank you. Also include that the chairman signed this agreement.
Are you okay with that, Sergeant Hall? And I'll keep my second.
So on the motion, I'll call for a vote. If there's no further discussion, Selectman Hull? Dr. Z? Aye. Campbell, Ferguson, aye.
Good work.
So it passes. Thank you for that. I think it's a good idea. Next agenda items, review, discuss, and act on the national opioid settlement.
Yes.
It's been a settlement, and I think we're gonna get $123,000 some change maybe.
So $123,000 over the next 18 years.
It's like less than 10,000.
Okay.
And it has to be spent on something related to that, similar like to the DARE, you might probably know.
Okay.
Program, something like that.
Like an opioid abatement. Efforts or initiatives, yes.
So to keep track of these funds, are they put somewhere else? Are they just in the general fund as well?
I think it's a special.
It would be like a special fund, but we actually haven't been awarded any funding yet.
We're just agreeing.
Like in the participation in the settlement agreement, yes.
Okay.
I'm okay with the settlement, however, these three pharmaceutical companies who created these drugs that are very addictive. And I've been a probation officer for 35 years, I've dealt with a lot of people who suffer because of the abuse of these medications. They take no responsibility, so they've agreed to spend this billions of dollars, but they're not going to be accountable, they're not held responsible, which I'm really disappointed. I understand we should accept it, but what a shame. These people are going to jail and sending these other, selling these drugs to these people.
Is that a motion? No. Former probation officer.
That's my personal opinion, acceptable.
I respect that.
Unfortunately, it's in the budget, out of doing business. Now, will we be actually receiving cash settlement? Will we be receiving some of the money from this?
Yes, I think it's $120,000.
Yeah, in the amount of roughly $123,000 over the next 18 years.
And who will be responsible for saying that it gets spent?
We haven't actually seen or heard how that would actually happen yet, like, so in all actually tonight's what we do so it's allowed Dayton to participate in the settlement.
So we're not getting this money right away.
No.
You should get it at some point.
And then we'll have that discussion.
Yes, exactly, yeah, to come.
So it's $123,510 is the amount that we should be, the town bank should be getting.
May I promise, last question on this, and then I want to hear from Mr. Thibodeau. Is this, and I apologize if maybe I just didn't hear it. To Selectman Hull's point, I know it's $123,000 over 18 years. Do they give you a little bit every year, or do they give you the lump sum once and then it's just
I think
a little bit over 18 years, right? Is what I would assume.
My reading of it.
I think
it's a little bit every year. I don't know the percentage.
So it's a breakdown every year for the next 18 years.
Thank you. That's it.
I know there's a motion here somewhere. Hold on, I know that a motion was here. Actually, you had a question.
The DARE program was an awesome program. I used to support that in multiple communities. The good thing would probably be to also talk to the chief of police, see if the officer that's at the schools could use some of the program like that, because he really knows,
The resource.
sees the kids. That's really where it's not gonna start with the young kids.
Yeah. I also want
Thank
to,
you.
no, that's a really good point, Mr. Thibodeau. I wanted to also, so I loved that program, as I talk about it all the time, so I think the chief was sick of hearing it. My dare officer was Sergeant Dutra, my 5th grade dare officer. It was a great program, and I think perhaps it could start a broader conversation, even though we don't have any of the cannabis dispensary is not open, the cultivation facilities are not open yet, and we are not receiving any of that 3%. But as we determine how having these dispensaries creates an impact on public services, I'm not saying it's going to. What I'm saying is we could observe those potential impacts and have conversations about how we think that 3% impact fee, I think they call it, tax on sales for dispensaries can be used in tandem with this opioid money, for example. So I would love to be part of those conversations, and I think that we should have those conversations. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. The other thing you could see about getting really old cruises, I know like we donated pots, snowmobiles, and stuff like that. I think they sent it down the auto auction, they painted it. They did it all up, and they had someone else donate all the leather, they could put the graphics on it. So it really didn't cost much to the community to get the car. It was the car that was already out of use for the police.
Are you talking about the original? I remember the dare.
The old car?
Yeah. The square, it was like a school boxy looking. Okay, I remember that.
That's a great car.
That was a used car.
That was an old cruiser. Decommissioned cruiser. Just got repainted and repurposed.
Are there any Crown Victorias left, or are they all surplus?
We just actually surplus, I believe, the last
The
one.
last one.
Yeah.
Where were you a few weeks ago, Mike?
My son was the also. I'm seeing the meeting next meeting. So I made sure I showed up.
So I will entertain a motion to authorize the town administrator to submit signed documentation on behalf of the board of selectmen in town and Dayton to participate in opioid settlement agreements with certain opioid distributors and Janssen Pharmaceuticals. For those that don't know what Janssen is, that's J&J.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z?
Aye.
And Campuchico is an aye also. So it passes. The next item is update on COVID-19 employee protocols. I know that task force. Yes, the task force discussed this yesterday. It's going to be a further meeting, the pandemic task force. And they're going to discuss it again next week and come up with more information. So maybe by December 8th, we may have more information regarding this. Is that
That's my hope, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Maybe you don't have the answer, that's fine. It looks like to me on the agenda that the COVID-19 employee protocols will be updated. So me not being part of those conversations, my simple question is it possible, and I sort of asked this to Mr. Pilling earlier, is it possible that the recommendations or the protocols will not change?
I think that they're going to change.
Yes.
I think they're going to, but it's a discussion that we're also going to have to. I mean, and as far as is going to come up with their recommendations, it should be presented to us, and we will have.
Yeah, it's going to be a conversation with the board of
Okay.
selectmen,
And
approved by the board of selectmen.
And I just asked from a place of not being part of those conversations.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
And we have time.
I understand.
General consensus has been, we as a town are not going to take any action until this matter has been resolved in court, which I think will end up before the United States Supreme Court.
Okay, you're specifically talking about the federal vaccine.
So the vaccination, but we also have an employee COVID-19 protocol for, so about out of work exposures, when to come back, etc.
So often testing is and that kind of stuff. There are some towns that aren't waiting for the Supreme Court to make a decision. I kind of think we ought to wait. Why should we get caught up on that and see?
Well, then we got to change course based on Yeah,
Yeah, so let's see what happens with it, select time.
No, I was going to say, should we separate the two or?
The big two, yeah.
Oh, yeah, two completely different issues. I just want to be very clear with that, yes.
The other one is the protocol for employees coming back once they've been either.
Yeah, two completely different issues.
Yeah, so, but that's something that we probably gonna address pretty quick, pretty soon.
Can I ask one last question?
Yes.
And it may be completely off base.
Mhm.
Part of those discussions that are or are not being had right now,
Yep.
which I'm fine not being part of. Is there discussion of things like the FFCRA, the family, like, is that still being discussed?
So the state has a law, it's in effect until, I believe, April 1st, 2022. It's called the employee paid sick time law, which makes a week's worth of time available to all our employees. From, I believe, the end of September to the first part of April. So like all of our employees have access, have access to that week's worth of time, up until the first part of April 2022.
Regardless of if they may have used it before?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So,
This discussion came up this morning, question I should ask that, but I'll ask it now.
Yeah.
If we change the policy, will this open up contract negotiations, reopen contract negotiations?
So it has the potential, but we're trying to actually have a policy that doesn't actually force that to happen.
and we may have more information on this next week. Yes, we may.
I'll wait.
Yeah. The next agenda item is to review, discuss, and act on the appointment of Nicholas Barry as a part-time dispatcher. This was addressed to the Board of Selectmen dated November 29th from Chief Robert McDonald. Board of Selectmen, with the landscape of policing evolving in the hiring pool not quite what it was, it is the responsibility of the administrative staff of the Dayton Police Department to identify quality candidates on a rolling basis. This gentleman started his policing career back with us in 2019. During his time here, he proved a very competent dispatcher. In 2020, he took the opportunities to attend the full-time police academy and graduated to be certified police officer here in the Commonwealth. He has once again expressed interest in joining the Dayton Police Department. For the position of reserve police officer and dispatcher, I would like to recommend the following candidate. Nicholas Barrier, 15 Prospect Street, number 5, Town of Mass. The above named applicant has already passed our police entrance exam, the Mass Initial Hire Physical, the MA PAT, or what PAT is, and has obtained the certification as a full-time qualified police officer. He will start field training in this new capacity as soon as possible and attend all mandatory annual in-service training. It's by the Chief of Police, so, any questions?
Just like to make a motion to appoint Nicholas Barrier as a part-time dispatcher, Dayton Police Department.
Before I second that, if it's okay, can I ask?
You said reserve police officer also, did you say that? It's reserve police officer, for the position of reserve police officer and dispatcher.
Okay, so yeah.
However, on the agenda, like dispatch is the only thing listed.
Right.
So that's why I recommend actually doing the dispatcher tonight.
And then next week, if you
Yes.
could bring this up, put this on the agenda again as far as.
Yes.
May I make a suggestion to the chair so that situations like this can be avoided going forward, and you certainly don't have to take it. Some communities put on their agenda, we have never since I've been here. Something like, review, discuss, act topics not reasonably anticipated within blah, blah, so that we wouldn't have to take a separate vote on a next night, but I'm okay with doing it this way. I will second that.
I have seen that, we have some boards here that use that. I feel uncomfortable because define what is reasonable and unreasonable. And there was a gentleman that was on Zoom this evening that I really feel that before we do something like that, and I see value in that we have a discussion that involves him so that we don't have to defend ourselves.
I'm not sure we need to discuss with him. I just don't think we ought to do that. I think the public ought to know what we're voting on, and we shouldn't wing it, so to speak, and decide we're going to change it a little bit. I think they need to look at the agenda, see what we're voting on.
I feel safer doing it that way, yes.
Yeah, we've always done it that way. I just mean, this is not
I
something
think
like
it's-
nefarious. You know?
Yeah, I mean, and this is, you know, I didn't pick up on it, so obviously.
I actually did.
Selectmen held it. So, I mean, this happens, and I think we can address it pretty quickly next week.
Yeah,
The
no
second part of it.
I did second that. No, we did
Then
not.
I'll call for a vote. If there's no further discussion, Selectmen Hull?
Aye.
Not this evening? Aye. And Campuchico is also aye. The next agenda item is to review, discuss, and act on the ratified amendments to the five agreements for 903 Fremont Street, 624 Middle Street. I'm going to ask Mrs. Goulart if you can speak on this.
Yes.
If you don't mind speaking on this.
Do you have copies of the letter that I sent to the board?
Yes,
In my packet.
in the packet.
Okay. What happened was, as you can see from all the dates and the pilot agreement deadlines, timelines, we issued, actually stormwater permits 3 times. They all fell prior to the end of this calendar year. And the importance of this calendar year date is that was going to be the interconnection date for the solar farms on Fremont and Middle Street with National Grid. Obviously, there's nowhere near that interconnection. So they applied for another 6 months extension on a stormwater permit. At the stormwater committee meeting, what I said to the members was, I don't have a problem extending it again. However, all of the extensions we gave them in the past all ended before that interconnect date in the pilot agreement. Now, the pilot agreements that we approved at town meeting are pretty much cast in stone with the exception of dates. Dates can be changed, amended, whatever, by a vote of the Board of Selectmen. The rest of the terms are pretty well cast in stone, and even if there were a proposed change in the tax payment schedule, then the Board of Assessors would have to get involved. So because the extension for the next stormwater permit goes into May of next year, I said to the committee, I think we should make the new, that's the 3rd stormwater permit extension contingent on the Board of Selectmen. First of all, we advised them that this came before us, and we approved it on the contingency that the Board of Selectmen will approve an amendment to the pilot agreements to extend the interconnection date for 2 years to December of 2023. I did it was questioned by a member of the board because she said the selectmen don't approve or get involved in the issuance of stormwater permits. But I looked at it strictly from contract law. The contract, in effect, that the town of Dayton voted, there were 2 contracts involved, pilot agreements, have a date in them that I didn't feel as the stormwater committee we should extend beyond that date. So I said to the developer, give me a firm date, because if the selectmen vote to change this, it's gotta be recorded. I don't wanna keep going to the registry of deeds to record amendments, because number one, it's costly. And number 2, you should have a plan so you can figure out when you think you're gonna be tying into National Grid. So they came up with a 2-year extension. So that's when I'm recommending that the Board of Selectmen recognize in their motion that the Stormwater Committee issued a stormwater permit extension contingent on the Board of Selectmen approving amendments to the 2 agreements for interconnection and the new date is December 31st, 2023. Now, if they come back to us again for more stormwater extensions, we've got 2 years that we can actually extend to without violating anything. But again, I look at contract law and I know what was voted, and to make changes in the dates in the pilots, the board has gotta be the authority that votes it, because you're the ones that have to sign it. Okay, so that's what this is all about.
In the department head meeting we had today, this subject came up. And Mr. Aguirre said that 2 years may seem like a lot of time, but these people have a lot to do. My question, Mrs. Goulart, in your discussions with these people, if they don't meet the 2-year amended agreement, would you be coming back before us to ask for an additional amendment?
If obviously, we're all looking at this project because a number of people who are on the Stormwater Committee, it's part of their regular jobs, they have to monitor this thing, all right? What I'm saying to you is, if you approve the additional 2 years for giving them time to interconnect, which means the project is up and running, if in fact they need extension of stormwater permits, we can extend up to 2 years, 6 months at a time. However, in all honesty, if this is going on and it looks like we're gonna be coming back to you again, it's gonna be another scenario, because I'm gonna tell them, this is gonna cost us money. You know, now we have allowances in the pilot agreements for them to pay the town. It's $5,000 per agreement to cover legal fees and recording costs and all that. By the same token, there's other work that's done at the town level that has to be taken care of. And so I don't want to spend $10,000 to get these things done. That's why I said to them, give us a date that you think you're gonna meet. So that's why they came up with a 2-year date.
So they understand that it goes beyond that, it's gonna cost them more money.
Well, the other thing too is they thought the stormwater permit would be automatic, because in the past, the stormwater committee voted it and we just did it. And I said, not this time, because of that date in the contract. I can't imagine any committee in the town issuing an extension on a permit that extends beyond what's voted in the contract.
Correct.
Doesn't make any sense to me. Strictly contract law. So that's why I said, it's gotta be a contingent vote. So, number one, the selectmen have to know why this is happening, and number two, they've gotta take action on this. So if they approve the 2-year extension for the interconnection date, the stormwater thing is going to be extended to the May date that's in that letter.
When we vote on this, do we have to have 2 separate motions?
I believe so, it's 2 different pilot agreements.
Yes, but the motion should state that, what I had said before about knowing that,
Don't worry.
knowing that, that the motion should state that, the board is, aware of the stormwater permit approval with a contingency that the board approve an interconnection date of 12/31/23. I'm not asking you to approve the stormwater permit, but what I'm in effect saying is, I wanted you to be aware of why we're asking this, and the really important thing that you're recognizing is whether or not you're gonna grant the 2 years for interconnection. Because that vote will take care of the contingent, the conditions that are on this stormwater permit. So you would vote one for 903 Tremont and one for 624 Middle Street, yes.
Are you ready to make a motion?
I am, but I did want to ask Selectman Assessor Goulart one question regarding what could happen if they don't get it together by that date.
Long before December of 2023, it's gonna come back before the board.
Okay.
Because all you're doing is amending that interconnection date. And as I said, I don't see any committee or group in this town with the authority to do anything that would extend a permit beyond the date that you're setting. So now, let's hope they make the date, but the other thing too is, let's hope that they, at least the next 2 years, they have broken ground, they've still gotta go through Concom, they've gotta go, stormwater's in pretty good shape. Unless something arises, which means we gotta do a pre-construction meeting and site visits, but that's okay at this point. The issues that have arisen have, as Mr. Rhines mentioned today, the plans include battery storage units, which we know is a whole different ballgame. The plans that the Conservation Commission has seen, I'll say at this point, like stormwater, are okay. But as the project hopefully breaks ground, we have pre-construction meeting, we have site visits, just like we've done with other projects. When something comes up, it's another site visit, or it's another meeting before a certain board. And depending on what that board does, it might come back to stormwater, or it might end up back with Concom. So again, all you would be doing is saying, okay, we'll give you 2 more years to interconnect. But certainly, we're all gonna be monitoring before that. Because the other thing too is, as Mrs. Beauregard said, when I gave her a copy of the proposed amendments, the assessors don't have to do anything unless there is a proposed change in the payment schedule that's in the main pilot agreement. So that's not on the table. And as Mr. Aguirre said, the interconnect won't happen until he gives it the final go-ahead. So that's another, I'll call it safeguard for the town.
Further questions?
I had a question, Mrs. Goulart. Have they exhausted much of that funds, the 5,000 put aside for legal fees and recording? Has that been touched at all? Have they started using it?
No, that money was paid directly to the town of
I know,
Dayton.
but has that been used that
All
much?
right, there would have been recording fees
Those are
and
expensive.
probably minor, I'll call it minor, legal review, because we use boilerplate language, which was developed way back when, which we paid for initially up front.
Yeah.
So we're using the same language. So that would allow, for example, if a question came up that was unique to one of these solar farms, then we would send it off to town council and say, hey, this came up, what do we do about this? The whole issue that we're dealing with currently is battery storage, and it's come up on 2 different projects. That could cause the town to expend some of the money for legal opinions. But also, as Mr. Ryan stated today, if battery storage is approved, the decommissioning fee for a project is going to be increased substantially, because right now, a solar farm that does not have battery storage, they have to post a $50,000 decommissioning bond. And when it's all over and done with, and they're not gonna generate anymore, they have to remove everything from the site and return the land to its near beginning condition. If they don't do that, we pull the bond and we get rid of all of the stuff that's on that property. That's a different story. But even looking at commissioning bonds now on the projects that are proposing storage batteries, the fees that would be involved, the bond issues would be increased simply because of what you're dealing with, because now you've got to get rid of those storage units.
What environmental hazard does that cause for that battery storage? That could be,
Excuse
it
me?
could be an environmental hazard from that.
The whole, we're not gonna get into batteries tonight. What I will tell you is,
It's just, well, it's.
what I will tell you is, there are 3 projects that would be involved with batteries. One of them's on Brook Street. We have spent countless hours on site, with site visits, with the appropriate town officials being there. Decisions have not been made on those. Probably the Brook Street one will be the first one that the planning board acts on. The battery storage issue is before the planning board. And the rest of us, meaning other committees, we're just waiting to see what's gonna happen with that. It'll be It'll be a good blueprint for any other battery storage ones that come down the pipe, like for Tremont and Middle. But, battery storage is being looked at from every angle you can think of, so I'll leave it at that, okay?
Thank you, you're always super informative. Thank you so much, Mrs. Quillen.
Yeah, so, it's my understanding, I think that was, at one of the site meetings, you have so many megawatts, if you're producing so many megawatts, you're now obligated to have battery storage. The Brook Street one has, they've set up some stuff, but it's still debating with the planning board. So they've changed the original plan, this is the problem. They had an original plan that's been approved by the planning board.
Correct.
That did not include batteries, and all of a sudden they come up that they need batteries. So that has to go back before the planning board, so,
Yeah.
and the fire chief has to approve, whatever.
Yeah, a permit, the only one that can permit battery storage is fire chief, okay? And he was at the site visit when a lot of questions were asked. I'll also mention, there is not a requirement for batteries.
That was mentioned, though, wasn't it?
We were told that, so because of MMA, I asked for a contract at DOER, because DOE, Department of Energy
Resources.
has done a number of programs for MMA. So, and I asked specific questions. There is a reimbursement program that's an incentive. Now, I'll even back up further. Initially, Brook Street had a solid, absolute, positively drop-dead date in October. And I kept telling the gentleman I deal with, you better go for an extension at DOER, because it's not gonna happen, because the planning board is not gonna be ready to deal with this. Oh, we could lose the project. I says, no, DOER wants solar farms. They want solar energy. So you go to them and you negotiate an extension. Well, at the last stormwater meeting, I found out, guess what? They got that extension, all right? So that was one issue, but the other thing I found out was the statement that was made, we have got to have battery storage, it's required. No, you don't. The incentive is, if you have battery storage, you're entitled to additional financial assistance through DOER. The other thing I found out was, so let's say Dr. Z, he's a developer and he's gonna build a solar farm up on Richmond Hill, okay? We go through the whole process, he's connected to the national grid, he's generating. He comes back to the town and says, I wanna add battery storage because there's a financial incentive through the state for me to do it. He can apply to do it at that point in time. He's gotta go through the town approval process. But if everything is worked out at the town level and he gets his approval, he notifies DOER and all this other stuff. I think it's called the SMART program, SMART, and I'm not sure what the acronym is. But when all of this was going on and I kept telling them, go back and negotiate, they will negotiate with you. The other thing is, all of this, I'll call it incentive and approval of all this stuff has been held up for over 18 months at the Public Utilities Commission. So that was an eye-opening conversation when I found out all of that good stuff, because I brought it up at one of the meetings and said, I got some news for you guys, okay? We weren't told exactly what the truth was. Yes, they want to go for it. Yes, they would like to have battery storage. Yes, they want to get maximum reimbursement up front, but you know what? No, batteries, set that one aside, because I stuck to my recommendation. Go back and negotiate an extension of the date. Put the battery issue aside. Get the planning board to approve what you want to build now and get interconnected. That's when I was told, oh, you can't do that. Oh, yes, you can. So it was enlightening. Let me put it that way, okay? So we have this information now, and I shared it. I even printed off the internet out of the slide presentation, and I gave it to Mr. Rhines at the last Stormwater Committee meeting, and he mentioned it at the planning board meeting. So that was just something else that came up. If you know enough people, you can get the right answers.
Thank you for that. Are you ready to make the motion?
I'm ready to be corrected on the motion. Mr. Chairman, I motion that the Board of Selectmen ratify the third extension of the stormwater permits and approve and sign the amendments to the pilot agreement, to the pilot agreement for 903 Tremont Street,
Second,
as requested by the developer.
So we have to approve the stormwaters?
No, he's ratifying, you're ratifying. In other words, you would indicate in the motion, you have been notified about the extension and why you are now being asked to approve an amendment. Because again, I don't want it to look like the stormwater committee did what? And then after the fact, the selectmen had to extend? No, that's why there's a contingent in that stormwater permit vote that we took.
Yeah, we're ratifying the extension and approving and signing the amendment.
Oh, thank you for that. Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z?
Aye.
And Campuchico? Another motion?
I do, Mr. Chairman, I motion that we ratify the third extension of the stormwater permit and approve and sign the amendment to the pilot agreement for 624 Middle Street as requested by the developer.
Is there a second?
second,
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for
Could
a vote.
I,
Yep.
friendly amendment?
Yes.
Extending the interconnection date, and this will be on both to 12/31/23.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, just insert that date because that
I didn't
date,
hear it. Did it have to be in the previous motion? No.
no, I'm saying, actually, you should amend the other one. Both of them should have the dates
Yes, there was
because
one-
you're gonna amend two pilot agreements.
Okay, let's just finish then on 624, then we'll have to go back and amend, for 624. So with that addition, amendment of December 31st.
Yes, the extension date. Yep.
And you second that, I believe.
yes,
Any discussion? If not, call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
aye,
Dr. Z?
Aye.
And Campuchico, that passes.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we amend the previously approved motion for 903 Tremont Street to reflect the requested extension, interconnection extension date of December 31st, 2023.
second,
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. Campuchico is an aye, it also passes. Thank you,
Thank
Mrs.
Thank you.
Margolis.
There was one other thing I thought of while I was sitting there about BP. I think the other reason I was probably involved with BP way back when, even further back, when Dayton went to BP to reactivate their membership so that we could get our students there
In the vote.
and not send them to Timbuktu anymore. The superintendent then was Dr. Ross. And I was at that meeting because I remembered and had been part of what took place many years ago when Dayton and Rehoboth, this member, both got out of the district. They thought they withdrew. In effect, all they did was pay their share of operating costs up to that point, and we became inactive. So actually what BP did was reactivate the membership of Dayton and Rehoboth. And that's how we got our students in there and started paying the assessments, okay? None of the assessments we paid involved capital. We never had to buy into that school, okay?
Correspondence. Yes.
I noticed that we skipped selectmen's reports.
Do that on
Item
purpose?
10.
Probably. You probably scared I was gonna say something. We did not do it.
Because I do have some.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it to my attention. Let's go back, before we do the correspondence, go back to, what is the item? It's item number 10, selectmen's reports and comments.
Actually, I have three. As everyone is aware, Dayton Rehoboth Regional High School, Regional School District is in the search for a new superintendent. They sent out a survey to the public via email. They also had a forum. On Monday, November 28th, I attended the Dayton Rehoboth Regional School District Forum to discuss the qualities of a superintendent that the district screening committee should focus on. The three areas that were all agreed upon by the members that were in attendance were: one, they were looking for a superintendent who has the leadership skills necessary to develop a culture of academic excellence throughout the district. Two, a superintendent who has both the political and leadership skills needed to bring Dayton and Rehoboth closer together and focused on its primary mission, educating students. And thirdly, a superintendent who has the skills and expertise to manage a budget in a way that promotes academic excellence and is fiscally sound in the difficult times that we live in. NASDAQ has been hired by the school district to help facilitate the search, and these recommendations, she will meet with the screening committee. They hadn't, at the point of the November 28th meeting, decided on how many candidates or finalists that will be sent to the school committee for their vote. The screening committee will meet with Dr. Margaret Isaac, and they will set some ground rules and also the number, and then they will interview and send the finalists off.
Yeah, was that meeting the 29th, not the 28th?
28th, well, it's Monday, 29th,
I think it's the 29th.
29th.
Does that thing know, you don't hear that? Okay, it's just me, I'm sorry.
You're hearing voices?
No, it's that thing makes a noise every couple minutes.
That's any questions? The second one.
I don't have a question.
No.
The second issue, second item, the Dayton Industrial Development Commission. It's off to a wonderful start. And at our last meeting, John Daggett? Jiggett.
Yep.
Brings some incredible skills to the table. You know, one of the things that a couple members of the planning board have said, that the town could use an urban plan. And my response to them would be, it has been repeated consistently. Yes, if we had $90,000, that would be wonderful. With help from certain, with Mr. Daggett's experience, I'm hoping that the Industrial Development Commission can work and bring in people to help fill that void. And the planning board has said repeatedly that their job ideally would be to plant, but what they've been doing for many, many years is putting out fires. So hopefully, this is going to be the start of developing a very strong relationship with the planning board, and working with the other groups. In the December meeting, we are planning on discussing open space with the idea of targeting specific buildings and properties owned by the town, and how we can bring in some money based on those properties. Whether it be the town get involved in the solar farm business, or the town get in the real estate business.
Or the canopy, like the schools, if you don't want to do that.
Right.
But
So
I've heard that.
those are the things that we plan on discussing at the meeting, I believe is December 20th. Yes. The third issue, not an issue.
May I ask you a question about that before we move on? So the Development Industrial Commission is mostly just talking about the mass general laws that give it its authority. It's like a marketing committee. So when you have good ideas that you think the town should actually be implementing, right, as part of a way to get more businesses to come in, who would you be working with, like planning?
It's my understanding that the Industrial Development Commission, although we work with the planning board, that recommendations, once we have met, come before the Board of Selectmen.
Oh, okay.
What we're trying to do in regards to the planning board are two things. One, work closely with them, helping them manpower-wise.
Yep.
Second thing, very important, that we not step on their turf. You know,
Understood.
step on their toe.
Yep.
We're also gonna be working with the other people that, you know, like open space, like the Trails Committee, and we're working out the particulars on that. One, I'm hoping that the Industrial Development Commission can be a conduit. So we don't have 3 or 4 groups coming up and presenting the same ideas to the Board of Selectmen. And hopefully we can be a manpower force to help them. We have many wonderful volunteers in this town who are going above and beyond. But one of the things that we have that they don't is that we have 3 powerful groups that are members of our board that have a whole big staff of people. We only touched base with 2 of them, and that so far has been Serpent. I don't know how many people they have on their staff. They're also dedicating a consultant to us at no charge. We have a member of the Taunton Area Chamber of Commerce who has a great deal of urban planning experience. He is a member of the board, but he's also said that he will bring in people that he works closely with from Taunton Area Chamber of Commerce, as well as professional urban planner and economic development person from Taunton, because he works as part of the team. And the third group that we haven't even met with yet, and they have offered, is the Bristol County Extension Service. And all of the assets that they're going to bring to the table. And hopefully, you know, we'll be able to turn to them to help us in delegating some of this work out, so that it's just going to expand the manpower that the town of Dayton has working on issues.
That's awesome. Thank you.
I'm a representative of.
Do you have a question regarding that?
I'm sorry.
When, you said that meeting's on the 20th, where is that meeting exactly? What time?
Oh, that will be a posted meeting. It's usually held at Old Town Hall.
Okay. Is it open to the?
Oh, yes, no, all our meetings are posted.
You mentioned that to me the other day too, that's why.
Yes.
I'll
They're all-
try to attend that, the 20th. Because that's also like a development for our business. Is this the old business development that's switched into this organization now?
I believe so.
It's just a committee that they've revitalized. It's not a change in anything except for members.
But about 10 years ago, I had a different name and they switched
It
to this
did.
name. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's the same committee then.
It is, yeah.
Okay,
And we've talked about this before. They had like a different name for it before.
yeah, it was like business development committee or something like that.
Exactly,
yeah.
yeah.
And then they
Correct.
evolved it into this.
We have learned that this is governed by state statute and that there is an official name that this committee is supposed to be called. So that's why we've been called the Development and Industrial Commission. And that if we wanted to change the name,
Yeah.
we would have to petition the state legislature to do that.
So the 20th, I'll watch for that then. Thank you so much for stuff.
Since our previous meeting, the Dayton Water District met, they had their fall meeting. At that meeting, they moved money into their stabilization account and the capital stabilization accounts, approximately $500,000. They did vote for a rate increase. And it is more than they have traditionally done. We're seeing a 50-cent increase. I believe the rates have gone up at least $1.50 per thousand. Obviously, it will impact the ratepayers, but in defense of the commission and Mr. Clooney, they inherited a mess. No uncertain terms. And in fairness to them, the three commissioners and Mr. Clooney, they have the overwhelming task of cleaning it up. One of the things that Mr. Clooney has done is developed a very good working relationship with Mr. Mullen. Because one of the things that has happened, and they're going to need to come before us, especially with the ARPA funding, is that much of the money that's coming in now is coming through the town of Dayton, not through the water district. So we're going to be taking some votes, I would assume, correct me, Mr. Mullen, down the road, depending on recommendations of Capital Outlay Committee, because they do need our financial assistance. And my understanding of ARPA funding, it's water, primary focus is water, sewer, and broadband communication. And the water district really needs our help. Also, once again, every meeting I say the same plea. They have sent out notices in regards to meter repairs. They're getting closer to their goal. There were 1,000 meters, and they still have about 200, the last discussion I had with them, that have not contacted the water district. It's very important that they be in touch. One of the very troubling things that, one of the appropriations, one of the articles was for $5,000 to meet a deficit in postage. And that came about as a result of the need by the water district to keep writing letters to people to respond to this request to set up an appointment so they can come in and either replace the meter or replace the batteries in the meter because they were defective. So if town people who received letters could get in touch with the water district, deeply appreciated. Thank you.
I have a question, if I may, regarding the water district rates. Thank you for the update. I was not able to attend, I was aware of the meeting, so I really appreciate the update, Selectman Hull. I don't know if you're able to answer this question, but had I been there, what I would have asked them, and I'm not making a value judgment on the increase in rates because I'm not on that board, I'm not elected to deal with that issue, so I'm certainly not going to criticize them, but was anyone affiliated with the district or working in the district able to answer whether or not the increase in rates will actually help the water district as a separate entity from the town of Dayton achieve their goals as outlined in the water district's master plan?
Will it help? Absolutely.
But did they show like financial projections? They know how much their projects have to cost, so was there a financial analysis done? And again, sorry, I'm Portuguese, so I get loud.
No.
So,
but see, one of the things.
Was that explained? Because if I would ask, how is this gonna help? If it's just tinkering around the edges, then a broader conversation needs to be had about how they're gonna reach and achieve the goals in the master plan.
Mr. Clooney, very nice, simple way, explained the plight of the water district. They are looking for a significant amount of money to purchase wells. When I say significant, we're talking millions. They have serious upgrades that are necessary at the plant. Again, millions. They have a major project that I didn't mention that is now going to be the Main Street project in midsummer next year to begin a project. It's a joint effort with DPW, with Mr. Ferry and Town Work Department. So have they created or at least have they shown a capital outlay plan to the residents? 5-year plan? No, they haven't.
Well, they have the master plan. I guess what I'm trying to get at, maybe I should just go to one of their meetings, I promise I will, is how did they choose how much to raise the rates? Like, they had to know, okay, we're gonna get this much more money. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't know their process, but they should know how much more money they're gonna get from raising the rates and how that fits into all the capital improvements that they're gonna do. And the reason I bring this up is because
All is not. I mean, I don't have specifically what their targets with me.
Understood. And you're not on the water, so I'm not expecting you to know all this, but I guess the reason I'm bringing this up, and it does fit into ARPA, is I don't want all of the town of Dayton's problems to be the water district's problems. We already have all of our own multi-million dollar projects that we know we need to do. Fire station, right? We've talked about it. So I just will be keeping an eye on how much of that pie goes to the water district. Now, I understand the issues very well, and I know that it's needed. I just don't want us to be inheriting a separate entity, all of their problems.
It is my understanding, and I think Mr. Mullen, Mr. Chinko know better than I, that they submitted some projects to the Capital Outlay Committee. And what those projects are, I don't know. They didn't submit any?
No, I know, they have, so they have their own capital planning project, which actually the rate, so actually how they change their rates are kind of fun. So they, I actually have their own projects. What we have been talking with them about the potential about is so like, we have our allotment and ARPA funding, and is there anything? Yeah, they got $2.3 million. Is there a way we can help them without? Actually spending more than we should.
Now, Chairman, Mr. Mullen?
Yep.
Did they submit anything to Capital Outlay?
No.
So, and this is my bigger concern. It's not even that. It's more,
They wouldn't
now
manage
we
to
don't.
meet it, though.
Correct, understood. I'm certainly not ascribing blame. They're the water district and we're the town of
Yeah.
Dayton. But now we have a bunch of projects that this, thankfully, revitalized capital outlay committee is gonna make determinations on, and we're having a whole separate conversation about all these capital improvements that are needed in the water district without talking about how that impacts the prioritization that the capital outlay committee is gonna do. So it's just that there's gonna need to be a conversation eventually.
I know I made it clear to Jeff, and I believe Mike had made it clear. And I'm going to take the same approach with every department. I got on people about making sure the November 18th deadline was met. And I'm a stickler for those, especially where there's so many requests. If people couldn't get their paperwork in by the 18th, I'm sorry.
Understood.
I mean, I can't, if the way we discussed it, capital outlay, and I feel a little uncomfortable saying this, and I say this with no disrespect to capital outlay, but if you didn't get your paperwork in by the 18th, I'm sorry, I don't feel for you, because we have a lot of projects, including school, and I don't know if school got in theirs.
Oh, they did?
Okay.
That's awesome.
So, those people who did what was asked of them in a timely fashion, then they should come to the table. Those who didn't, I'm sorry.
And just so you understand, we haven't met since that November 18th deadline, so when we meet in December, I'm sure that's something that we want to address.
Okay.
Those that haven't provided us the necessary information that we requested.
And as we close this conversation, I did just want to add.
Closing it?
Well, I'm resting my case. What I want to say is, water is very important, sewer is very, like, these are the essential public services that make Dayton and distinguish us from some of our nearby communities that may not make those investments like we do. So I just want us to keep a keen eye on the town's priorities and where we can help the water district, because some of those issues innervate, as you mentioned, highway projects, public works projects, then we should assist. I just want us to make sure that from the town perspective, that we're able to get to and address all the important pressing, because here's the thing, we're not gonna be able to call on the water district to help us. We are it. They're calling us for help. So we need to make sure our ducks are in a row. Sorry, I'm getting into it. But anyway, I just want us to be mindful, that's all. And not lose sight of our objectives.
So we do have a representative that goes, a board member that goes to the water district. So maybe you can address this at the next meeting. And we have a concern about how is this going to impact the town? Number two, why have they given us the information to the capital? And a legitimate, really good question is, you've increased the rates. What's the plans with that money now? Is that taking care of the needs just now, or is it down the road, or whatever it is? So I think
I want to know it's a real number, not just, hey, we'll do it 18 cents and we can get, what is it going? Where is it fitting with your plan that you have? What needs is it addressing and problems is it solving? That's all.
I will meet with you.
And that one I'm still confident. I'm sure there are people that went to that meeting and were upset that the rates are going to be used. And half the reason was probably because they don't know what it's going towards. At least if I feel like if you explain to people, hey, here's what's been going on the last 20 years, here's why we need the money, here's what it's gonna, the extra money we'll have from it over last year, and here's what it's gonna go for. People could at least say, okay, that makes sense, maybe I still don't agree, but there's a need being addressed by it, and it's not just a willy-nilly increase. So I'll get off my soapbox.
I will meet with you.
I do, very quickly. Open Space and Recreation Plan was conditionally certified by the Department of Conservation and Recreation. This makes us eligible for a bunch of conservation and land use grants. What we're doing right now and what the chairman, Kevin Smith of the Open Space Committee has been doing is reaching out to other boards. We reached out to Trails, Planning, Agricultural Commission, and I'll give you an example of the types of things that we're gonna do together. The open space residential bylaw. We really want to embark on that with the planning board. They are the authority. We like Development Industrial Commission are just a recommending body, so we're gonna work on that together, probably through liaisons. So it's not 10, 12 people meeting in it's very difficult to get anything done. We're also gonna work with the Trails Committee on land acquisition, and just ideas on maybe land we don't need and things like that, and how that fits into our goals and objectives, and the feasibility study that the Trails Committee will be embarking on, and where they want to interconnect with Taunton and Somerset. We're also going to be, or the AgCom, Agricultural Commission, will be completing their agricultural work plan soon. And so we'd love to meet with them as well and know how open space could possibly help them achieve their goals that they have as outlined in the agricultural work plan. And as always, we're working with Sir Bill Napolitano, who is like a wizard in this area on making all those things happen. So it's nice. It's not just going to be a bunch of words and a plan that goes on a shelf that nobody, you know what I mean? We're going to actually bring it to life. So A lot of exciting things.
Thank you. The correspondence. This was addressed to Alice Souza, our Executive Director of the Dayton Council on Aging. My dear Alice, it is with truly mixed feelings that I will announce my retirement at the end of this fiscal year. The last day will be Friday, July 1st, 2022. This decision wasn't an easy one for me, and it pains me greatly to think that I will no longer be contributing to primetime program we've all built together. I realize that primetime would never have been successful or sought after as it has been without the dedication and the hard work that every person has contributed over the years. It takes many hands to run such a successful program, and each person is just as important as the next. Having spent the majority of my working career here, I feel so fortunate to have worked alongside so many talented, wonderful staff members, volunteers, town employees, residents, and business partners throughout the years. Each and every person who has walked into my life has been a tremendous blessing to me in one way or another, and I cherish each and every one of them. These wonderful people and all the good people of Dayton will always have a very special place in my heart. Watching primetime grow and be available for so many that needed our services and what we could provide has been an extremely satisfying experience. Together we have achieved great heights and became one of the most successful adult day programs in the area. Primetime continues to be just an amazing and in some cases life-saving program for so many clients and family members. When I think back to when I began working at Dayton, I had no idea I would spend the last 22 years as part of such a vital service. And likewise, when I think of many wonderful people I have had the pleasure and privilege of serving, I continue to be amazed. Our older population is truly the greatest generation. I want you to know that my time here in Dayton has filled me with a sense of purpose and belonging that none other could have offered and brought a deep sense of purpose to my life. I've been blessed to have your support, and I will always be thankful for the opportunity you have given me. I have learned a great deal from every person that has passed through my doorway, and I feel that my understanding of human nature and the needs associated with family care and growing older has grown tremendously. It's brought me much joy and happiness interacting with our little primetime family and the amazing community at large. I want to thank all the good citizens of Dayton and their families for their support and the privilege of serving here. When my last day finally arrives and I walk out the office doors, I will be able to look back with pride and satisfaction whatever we have accomplished together. Though I am very sad to leave, I am eager for the opportunity to spend more time with my family and for the chance to travel a little bit more. I know that retirement will take me some time to get used to it, as I will sorely miss everyone. In closing, I want to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to you and the town of Dayton, allowing me the opportunity to serve here, and I wish you many blessings, good health, and all the best in the years to come. Sincerely, Sheila New. Sad. Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept with sincere thanks and appreciation the resignation, time effective.
Retirement. Yeah.
Retirement. I'm sorry, retirement. As of Friday, July 1st, 2022.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion?
Not so much discussion, as I always do, I just wanted to say to Sheila, if you're watching, which I hope you're not, I know you have better things to do. It was a pleasure working with you. I remember coming over here several times just to chit chat, get different internet stuff set up. This is before Chris Rauner, Mike. And I really enjoyed just getting to know you and all that you did for the town. I know, I don't believe Sheila is actually from Dayton, but I felt like you were. She was really passionate about the clients that come to primetime. She probably calls them family, I call them clients. So I really just appreciate all that you've contributed. You love this town just like you were from it, and thank you so much.
I'll call for a vote. Selectmen Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. Next is an email from Joe LaRue. I'd like to officially resign from the Dayton Human Rights Committee. I have been a member of this committee since it began. It has been an honor to serve. I no longer have the time to dedicate to this group, but I will continue to carry the mission with me wherever I go. We have been faced with many challenges unbeknownst to the majority of this town, and despite the hard work, time commitment, and energy, it's been disparaging to consistently be minimized in our attempt to outreach the town and community. Moving forward, I would love to hear more about what the committee is planning through the use of social media, et cetera, et cetera. This is a conversation we have frequently, and we were met with objections. Without this, there is little opportunity for the town to get involved in the side of the human rights. Thank you again for allowing me to serve as a member, vice chair, and acting chair for a committee that has meant so much heart. I wish you all the best. Sincerely, Joe, who will be missed, and I will entertain a motion.
Before I make that motion, I just wanted to add, she did write something in here about not being able to do anything on social media. No such request came to this board, so I did just want to note that for the record. When the Commission on Disability wanted to create a social media account, they came to us, so I did just want to say that. And with that, I motion that we accept the resignation letter of Jill Garut with thanks and appreciation.
Is there a second? Second. I know it had been discussed at meetings. I'm not sure if I brought it to your attention. I'm not sure I have.
No, I don't believe I never.
I just didn't want anyone to think that the Board of Selectmen had refused a request to create a social media account, that's all.
I'll call for, if there's no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. We received an email from Kristen Pius. Hello, it's with a heavy heart that I have submitted my immediate resignation from the Dayton Human Rights Committee. As you know, I have moved to Swansea since the start of my time serving. At this time, I have decided to focus my efforts in the town of Swansea, which is a great town, by the way, where my family and I now reside. I will no longer be able to commit to the needs of the committee. I am thankful and value the opportunity and experiences that I had as a member. Sincerely, Kristen Pius. Sad to see her leave, but I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we accept the resignation letter of Kristen Pius with thanks and sincere appreciation.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, I'm also sad that she no longer lives in Dayton, but she's right over there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, oh, so homecoming.
It's a great time.
It is.
I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. Minutes, I'll ask for a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting minutes of November 10th, 2021.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the meeting minutes. You said Wednesday, October 27th, 2021 is prepared this evening.
Actually, I asked for a motion on November 10th.
Okay, it's out of order, I'm sorry. So moved.
Yeah. Second. Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. Campuchico is an aye. I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Selectmen's regular meeting minutes of October 22nd, 2021.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is also an aye. It passes. I ask for a motion to release the Board of Selectmen's executive session meeting minutes of August 12th, 2020.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, just in general, I would like to ask either the town administrator through you or the executive assistant that anything that may have a potential like ongoing litigation or anything like that, were there any redactions that needed to be made, and if so, were they made? If they were made.
and they needed to be made.
Okay, thank you. No further question.
Call for a vote.
Aye.
Selectman Hull? Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. Approval of the warrants.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that that the Board of Selectmen approve the following warrants, all dated November 17th, 2021. 20A-22 in the amount of $118,423.48, and 20B-22 in the amount of $104,111.46.
Second. Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. Passes.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the following warrants, all dated November 23rd, 2021. 21A-22 in the amount of $123,313.92. 21B-22 in the amount of $23,793.31. And 21C-22 in the amount of $198,301.56.
Second. Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the following warrants, all dated December 1st, 2021. 22A-22 in the amount of $120,687.16, and 22B-22 in the amount of $79,715.14.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Now we'll call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico goes an aye. Public input. I know there's somebody on Zoom, I don't know if he.
Chuck?
Chuck. Public input, anybody? Public input? Mrs. Goodall, I'll let Tom go first. Just identify yourself. Yeah.
Thank you. Tom Galucci, 2086 Power Street. I would absolutely love to see this project for Bristol Plymouth opposed by all of us, because $300 million, of which, what is it, 22 million or 26 million?
22 million.
Pretty soon you're talking serious money, right? So let's kill that. I mean, my son went to that school, and I defy you to walk around that school and not think it's a brand new school. It's beautiful. And as far as rehabbing the school or something like that, you've got all these kids learning all these trades, put them to work. One of the things that struck me at the last meeting, where they made their presentation, was that they wanted it to be more visible from Route 24. There's 10 acres of trees in front of it. Cut them down, seriously. It'll be more visible from Route 24, believe me. So that's fine. I will work with all those other towns, and I'll talk to you, Selectmen, all about it too, because I know some of those same people. I know Badney's over there, and George over here, and we'll try to gather up some more resistance. And I know the Taunton City Council is not going to go for it either, not with its new makeup. So I think I think we can pretty much kill it if we're careful and if we play our cards right. It sounds like we're anti-education. We're not. I certainly think Bristol Plymouth is a great school. As I said, my son graduated from it last year. He's doing great now. He learned a trade. But our own kids here in Dayton are going to school in friggin' trailers. And that's inexcusable when we're talking about spending $22 million for a school that's, it's ridiculous. I'm sorry. We have other priorities here in Dayton. There are things we need, and, let's just base it on wants and needs. I run a business. I want a new Sprinter for the business. I want dozens of new things for the business, but I have to make do with what I have. So in these trying economic times with gas at $3.50 a gallon, I wonder why. Let's do more with less, and that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Goulart?
To follow up on what Dr. Z said when he asked the questions about the rate increase at the water district. When that item was discussed, was it clear if that money was for capital or operating expenses?
It wasn't.
So the question is, are they making it operationally? And if they're not, are they raising rates to meet their operating day-to-day expenses, the usual labor and parts and electricity, all the stuff that goes into an operating budget? Is that what the money, the increase is for? If it's for capital expenses, as you said, what are they? What is the long-range plan? If it was combined, there's a real problem there. I would suggest that the Board of Selectmen contact the water commissioners and request copies of the audits, at least for the last 5 years, including the management letters that were written by the auditors. I'm hearing things that they inherited a mess. Well, I have a difficult time with that because the chairman of our finance committee served as a commissioner for years. It was during his term when they finally had an audit from a CPA firm and found out that they had millions of dollars sitting in free cash that should have gone into capital accounts. They did use some money to, I don't know if they paid off some bonds or some loans or something, but again, to hear now they inherited a mess, I have strong concerns about when did that happen? It could have been prior to Mr. Swartz being on there, but I know there were major problems because I was on the finance committee here at the time and we discussed them. But in order to figure out what this money was for, that we're all gonna be paying, and what mess was inherited, those audit reports are public record, and I would ask for them. And as far as I'm concerned, you can go back more than 5 years, but they need to be looked at by financial people who can see if there was a trend, if there were problems, whatever got them to the state they're in. If it's strictly operational, the question is, what has caused the rates to go so high that the normal budget can't meet it with the income that you're getting? And again, as Dr. Z said, if it's capital, what are the plans?
Before I get to you, Selectman Hull.
I asked specifically at that meeting what they had in capitalization and what they had in regular stabilization fund in both instances, which was very troubling. Less than 500,000 in operational and less than $1 million in stabilization. So,
And I did just, if I may add, I did not have a chance to read the water district's full master plan. It is in the town administrator's office. I did come across it. It's a very long document. My brief perusing of that document told me that their issues are not with the operating budget. I feel like a lot of their issues are with capital improvements being needed. So that doesn't answer our question about what the money is going for. But I don't think that they raised the money to pay people more or hire some extra people. I really think a lot of it, my gut tells me, is for capital expenses.
And if it's capital, those of us who live in that district need to know it's capital, because if it's capital, the question is, should you be going for a bond issue instead of raising rates? If you go for the bond issue, you would probably have to raise water rates to pay for the bonds. But if you're raising water rates now, what is the capital expense or expenses that you're gonna be spending it on? And I don't mean that if it's operational, I don't mean it's on labor, the question is, we all deal with two budgets, capital and operating, okay? When we have capital expenses or a warrant article, we wanna buy whatever, okay? You know specifically what it's for, you know if you're gonna buy it outright, you know if it's a 5-year lease purchase and all of that, okay? At this point in time, I wasn't at that meeting either, but the question is, what are the water rate increases going to cover? We don't know that. But I can also tell you, when Mr. Swartz was first elected to that commission, and all that money was found, because they had a CPA firm come in and do an audit. They had more money in free cash than this town had in stabilization. We didn't have a capital stabilization at that time, I don't believe. But this was during tight times in the town of Dayton, when we weren't able to put money away every single year into stabilization. We were just making it. This is when we were paying that extra $1 million a year to the regional district. I mean, this was tough times. But by the same token, when that was discovered, it was like, how does this happen? That's a management response. That's why I'm saying, you need to get those audit reports and the management letter that the audit firm they write every year, because in that management report letter, they talk about specific things. Even the audit reports we get, I used to read them every year to see what the story was. The other thing too is, if in fact there has been an ongoing problem, I don't care who the auditor is, I don't care if you change the auditor every year, they go back to the previous year and find out what the findings were, and they address them to say whether or not any progress was made in dealing with problems. So this will give you some historical information about what has been happening, okay? So that's another issue that needs to be looked at. If they're gonna have capital expenses coming down the road, and they're gonna be coming to the town to help them with that money that's coming into the town, you need the background to make decisions.
And further, I want to be confident if we're going to, as a board, work with them to assist them in solving some of these issues, then I want to be confident that what they're doing right now is actually going to help address some of those things. So it's not an unwillingness to help. I understand, I've read some of the report, but we just need to put confidence in ourselves as a board that the issues are gonna be addressed and that people have confidence that their action is going to address what they're saying. Because the worst thing would be to raise rates and then you still have all these outstanding issues that you can't address, which raising the rates is not gonna solve all the issues, but we just wanna be sure that we're moving towards solving some of them, that's all.
I have brought this up years back, that maybe they should look at moving to a DPW, take the water district surge, put it all with the highway department. One department covers all. They have the highway department to work on the roads, do the digging we need to do. There's all different things, there's a lot of benefits to the town of doing that and saving expenditures.
Mike, I totally agree. My only concern is that if we were to do that tomorrow, and I know that's not what you're suggesting, all these issues that the water district is dealing with now become our issues. So in addition to addressing the school and the fire station that's in a flood zone and all that stuff, now we're taking on all their problems. And now it's our problems. So I would like us to chip away as much as we can by partnering with them to help them solve some of those issues before we have that conversation. But I do agree with you, it's a good idea.
At least I get a lot.
But I need them to be solvent before we can
I know, but
take on
give you some oversight before you get these surprises. Hey, by the way, we need X amount of dollars for this, because we can't afford it. We're gonna raise the rates 50%, because what's it, $3 a thousand right now before the rate increase?
I think a 10-year audit is necessary.
I would agree with that.
Because I can project what they were charging and accumulating, and I also know what's been spent. There's something not right here.
You just identify yourself for the record.
I'm Bill Mariano, 2197 Chestnut.
To address, Mr. Chairman, Studo's remark, we've talked about taking in the districts, there's more than one that could come under the town. The reason why the Dayton Water District has not, has been acted upon is the debt they have. And they said when the debt is paid off for the water plant, the treatment plant, then the town should consider, filing legislation to have the district brought in under the town. As long as they have that debt, the debt is being paid for by the ratepayers. That's not everybody in this town. You assume debt, you're bringing debt into the town. That's not gonna fly. I mean, so that's what it has been. Now, if there's going to be additional debt incurred, people in Dayton need to know that, not only ratepayers, because there certainly is, what we know, other communities have a DPW. Sewer, water, whatever, okay? And it's been talked about a number of times, but the situation with the Dayton Water District is, as long as there are outstanding bonds that are debt of that district, they don't wanna bring it into the town, because then the town, people that'll never see public water.
Now
Okay.
paying for it.
Exactly, exactly.
Any other public input?
Just a quick question. How much is an outside audit, like a 10-year audit, like you said, how much is that?
But they.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, no,
I think it was what he was talking about.
5-year.
They do it all.
No, I said ask for the reports. He's saying ask for 10 years worth of reports. The audits have been done.
Okay.
They've done
There
it.
are,
So they were done previously?
I would hope they've done every year.
They are for the town.
I'm seeing obfuscation from them, that's what
There
I'm saying.
is, let me put it this way. When all the money was found in free cash, it was because Audits had been done, not by a CPA firm. And when Mr. Swartz became a commissioner, the first thing he said was, we need to have an audit done by a CPA firm. They were audited by a firm that was not a CPA firm. It was a firm who was providing accounting assistance to them, which certainly was a question of conflict of interest. Anyhow, my understanding was, because I can remember discussing this with him, but what this gentleman is saying is, don't ask for 5 years, ask for 10 years. You want to see the history or the trend.
The trend's right.
It's got to be there. If you see back 8 years ago, some firm says, this is what you need to address in the next year. So the new firm comes in, let's assume, and they say, look, you always read the previous year's audit report. Did they do what was recommended? Okay, they did this, well, they didn't do that. That means that's still a problem. And the next audit report will tell you what was done and what's still hanging and what's new. It's a history. And in order to determine if there's such a mess up there, which I have no idea, I can't tell you that. But if there is, the question is, if it's been reported in audit reports, why hasn't it been acted on? And if it's a financial situation, as you said, raising the rates now, is it going to address it? And is it capital or operating? I don't know. I don't know what the mess is.
That's the issue.
But all the questions.
They already raised the rates and we still don't know.
The questions have been asked, the rates have gone up, there is historical data, and if you request those audit reports and the management letters, those are public documents.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
So, I think we should put it on the agenda for next week, and we were to request the audits, going back 10 years for all. Well, back they actually went, the audits, because they may have only been doing it for 8 years, so don't ask for those reports, but we can't vote on it tonight, it's not on the agenda.
They have to have them, they have to have audits,
Correct.
okay?
But you indicated that when Ed Swartz became the chairperson, he requested that.
He requested
I don't know
an
if that goes back
audit
10
done
years.
by a CPA firm, because
So-
the previous audits were not done by a CPA firm. They were done by a public auditing firm who also provided practically daily bookkeeping assistance. All right? I mean, I don't really want to get into this more, but, I mean,
I heard everything I need to know.
It's like double dipping.
the other thing, let me put it this way.
Let's just be
How
careful.
do you audit the books that you keep? Right? How do you do that if you keep them? That doesn't make sense. There's no checks and balances. The other thing you gotta remember, whenever they have problems in the water district, they're gonna come back and haunt the board of selectmen. Remember when they expanded the boundaries all the way to the Somerset line? That one almost ended up in court. I mean, we even had the legislature, the senator and the rep. That's when the senator and the rep, especially the rep, stepped in and told the board of selectmen, you've got to take action. Because we had been told at the time, butt out, you got nothing to say, we're a district. And what came back was, the selectmen are responsible for the total operation of the town. And if a district is doing something, I'll just use the word inappropriate, the board of selectmen must take action, and we did. As it turned out, they moved the boundaries back. I mean, I remember saying at a meeting, the first thing you gotta do is define your boundaries, your legal boundaries. And then Mr. Vengis came on the board of selectmen, and they actually did that, and then it brought the things back. They defined line district, okay? But I only use that as an example. People in town are gonna be upset. This water rate increase is not the board of selectmen, but you're gonna hear about it. You're gonna hear about it. And they're gonna raise the kind of questions that have been brought up here tonight.
Any other public input?
I think that was a good conversation, and I just wanted to raise this for town administrator and our board, is that it sounds like we have more questions than answers, and at some point, we might wanna think about having a meeting jointly together, because at some point, I don't think it's fair for me to keep like grilling Selectman Hull, when really I just wanna ask the water district directly these questions, and I don't think it's fair to hold Selectman Hull to answer for That's completely separate.
I do want to add, he wasn't specific at the town meeting. It was a very confusing discussion about the water rate increase.
Mhm.
They started the discussion, it was at 6 p.m. And at 6:30, they were going to have their regular meeting. So they started the discussion, and at 6:30, they suspended it. Went on with the articles. And then a couple hours later, came back, and half the people had
Had
already
left.
left. Then they discussed what they were going to do, and then they voted. One of the things that Mr. Clooney mentioned, wasn't specific, was that they were going to need to go up to bond for several of their capital projects. So to answer Mrs. Goulart's question about when is the debt gonna be resolved, based on the amount of expenses, capital projects that need to be done, and we're talking millions here.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be a while
Correct.
before they're out of debt. Second thing that, on the operational side that he did mention, was that one of their personnel are retiring, and they're not going to fill that position as a cost-saving measure. So they are doing some things to try to deal with the operational.
Understood. And that's why I would just love to hear more about that. I know those things are going on, but I'm on the Board of Selectmen. If I'm not aware of these things, then I certainly wouldn't expect any resident to be aware of it. Because I, quite frankly, am friends with some of the water district commissioners. I hadn't heard of some of this, so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion going to executive session.
Give me 1 second.
Yes. I wasn't gonna bring this up today, but I'd like to just give you a heads up. My name is Bill Mariano, again, 2197 Chestnut Street. I have a parcel of land that's gonna be sold, it's in 61A. The gentleman, I'm gonna probably get the information, because, you know, I don't know how long it takes, a week or so. And I didn't know if the town was interested in purchasing the parcel of land, it's 28 acres on Elm Street, or it's referred to as 0 Elm Street. It's right adjacent to Hillcrest Development. And, you know, if the town is not interested, then I'll let it go to this individual.
So the assessors, when they review it,
Spectre property,
No,
is Spectre the buyer?
no.
Is Winthrop Street the buyer?
Spectrum is one of my corporations.
Okay, so we voted on that today to send a letter to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
To not exercise their right to acquire. If you go south on Elm Street towards Somerset, as you go over the brook and start up the hill, it's on the left-hand side, the east side, and it's the land kind of slants towards AstraZeneca.
Yes.
Okay, the Board of Assessors did vote on that today.
so we're getting that shortly.
The letter was signed today. So again, that was the recommendation of the Board of Assessors. It's coming to you now.
Okay. Did planning weigh in, do you know? as well?
Yes, they did earlier today. They-
Same as the assessors? Oh, okay, all right.
So once we get those letters, we'll put on the agenda. Our next meeting is the 17th. I'm not sure we're gonna have that information, but if we do, I would ask that to be put on the
Yeah,
agenda,
it should be in the office tomorrow, because as I said, we signed it today.
as well as the planning. Well, that's
There,
also.
right. So at least by the 29th, the latest, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, our next
okay.
meeting. So that 61A should be on our agenda for next week. We should have the letters from the planning board as well as the assessors for the recommendation, and we can address that on December 8th.
Sure, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr.
And
Chairman.
we will not be returning to open meeting again.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A, number 3. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
To discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares. Negotiations with Dayton police officers, Mass Cop Local 306. And number 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirement. Executive session minutes, approval of the Board of Selectmen's executive session minutes of November 10th, 2021, September 29th, 2021, October 13th, 2021, and October 27th, 2021.
Is there a second? Call for a vote. Selectman Hull?
Aye.
Dr. Z? Aye. And Campuchico is an aye. Passes. Going to our executive session. Patrick, good night. Love the Monterey.
See you next week. I know.
Good night. Hey, just a quick reminder, you have to renew the common vic licenses and you have to list all those on the agenda, just a reminder.
I remember from last year, Patrick.
I know.
I will do.
Hey,
Have a good night. I'll see you
make
next
sure
week.
the addresses are listed on the agenda. I listen.
Thank you.